Can you hear me? I hope so. I'm going to double check. Apologies. Technical difficulties. There we go. It seems to be working. Good evening, all. Welcome. I am in front of my bookshelf today. I'm actually up in the office rather than on the green screen on account of it being blisteringly hot. So I've got the fan on. I do hope that you can see what's going on, and also that you can't hear the fan blowing. So fingers crossed that's all working. I'm just going to double check the audio is on. It keeps kicking to the iPhone microphone, which is very annoying. Maybe now we're on the right one. Maybe now we're on the right one. I'm hoping that's worked. I've got the iPhone here, so it shouldn't be kicking off. No fan noise. Lovely. Perfect. Welcome, friends, to this rather chaotic start. We are here. And I do, in fact, also have an image that I'm going to pop up, because this one was sent to me by the lovely Steve. And I'm just wondering if you can figure out where I am or where we are in front of. While we're doing that, let me just tell you what we have in store today. Now, as you are aware, we are in August. This is the July history news. The reason for that is because last Monday, I was down in Dorset, going on holiday for the week with my children to hang out with my family as well. So we've had a lovely time. If you're on my Instagram, you may have seen some images of us running around beaches, seeing aeroplanes fly past because the Swanage Carnival was on, and then also going fossil hunting near to Lyme Regis. So we were, thank you, Steve, for staying quiet, because obviously you took this with your drone. So don't, Snudpuckle is indeed a building, correct? Well done. So that is where I was. So we have therefore got a number of news items today. Thank you if you're joining live. If you're watching on the playback, thank you for that as well. We have got updates, repatriation/decolonization news. We've got so many new news items. We have also got some ding-dongs, and we've got a couple of events and exhibitions. As always, those articles will be listed in the description box, and they will correspond with the numbers you're going to see on the bottom of the slides that will be coming up shortly. I have got lots and lots of people to thank, because we've got many articles. I did see some coming in both yesterday and today, so they will be in next month's if they're not already in this one. For those of you as well that spotted my story that I put up, this relates to the video that went out on Friday, which was my vlog of the Mary Rose event, Six Queens, One King and His Ship, which was an incredible event. And I'm also really proud of the vlog. I got to speak to heavy hitters in the history world. It was a real thrill, and I did definitely fangirl. So I'm incredibly proud of the vlog. What's taken a slight souring is that I had this incredible experience an opportunity to film everything. The Mary Rose was fully behind me filming this whole event. They've been very kind, very supportive, and they are happy with the video. While we were on the second day, we got to go out to the wreck site on a boat. This was part of the event, and as part of that, the last post was played, and then we ceremonially, a wreath was dropped into the water over the wreck site, and all of us on board dropped a white rose over as well. So I filmed the prayer, and then I also filmed the last post. I put that in its entirety in my video for two reasons. One, because it was an incredibly moving moment, and two, it showed very clearly what this event was like. So imagine my surprise after the video has gone up when I get copyright claims for that piece of music. Now, I'm very aware how old the last post is, and it's certainly in the public domain. Also, while the performer may have performer's rights, I did have permission to film, and on top of that, the film I created is my own content, so there should be no copyright issue. So I've submitted a challenge to that. They claim that it's been a recording by somebody else who has recorded the last post, but not the one that I have, because it's a different man and I recorded it. And then lo and behold, while that is in its process, that will take 30 days. While that's in its process, another company claiming that somebody else has recorded it, that they are in fact the person who owns it. So it's been copyright claimed twice, which is just unbelievable to me. So this is what's happening with that video. I am going to challenge it. I believe that it's because these companies, they use AI to essentially scrape content that's coming up. And if they think they can claim it, because guess what? The last post is a scored music. So it will sound very similar to other last posts that may well be covered by copyright because they've been recorded by somebody. So therefore, sweat of the brow applies. That is not what's happened here. I am prepared to fight this. However, there is a risk that it may be found that what I'm doing is fraudulent. I don't believe it is. If so, I do risk losing my channel because of this. But I think they are bang out of order, and I'm personally enraged that something that is so special and so moving and so meaningful to veterans, to military families, to all of those who engage in acts of remembrance, the thought that you can try and claim that, it drives me wild with rage, actually. It really does drive me wild with rage. So that's what's happening. As I learn more, I will keep you updated, but I'm not going to back down on this, friends, because it's tickled a part of my brain that's just made me absolutely livid. And if you want to know the companies that are responsible for this, I will tell you their names if you wish. So the companies that are responsible for doing this, one is We Are Era Music BV, and the other one is something called AdRev for a third party. They are the people that have done this, and if it happens again, I will let you know. But I'm enraged. I'm absolutely furious. Anyway, where are we? Let me see. Where are we? Let's start with some hellos, shall we? After all of that. Hello, Jessie. Thank you for joining. I'm very pleased you're here. Laurie, well done for making it down. I'm so pleased that you have a Monday time on a Monday to come and join us. Mary-Ann Rosie, hello, hello. Clue, hello there. Steve, yes, thank you as well for this photograph. Very, very pleased. Coco, hello, good evening. Esmeralda, hello there. And this is your first live. Well, welcome indeed. And Snudpuckle, hello there. All about the audio. Thank you. It is indeed a bonny church. Jessie, will I try and do something with the tapestry if possible? This is the Maia tapestry. We are going to be talking about some updates on that. I am trying to get tickets. It's currently sold out. The next release of tickets, I believe, is happening September, the next release of tickets. So I'm waiting to see if I can get tickets in the next batch because they've all sold out. But I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to head on over and do that. Hello, Lost in Space. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, Esmeralda says Park Rose Permaculture went through that if you need someone to reach out to. Oh, that's very helpful. Thank you so much. If anybody knows any copyright lawyers that have a furious pattern, then do let me know. So where am I in front of? Any takers? It is indeed religious in origin. This is, and if I pronounce this wrong, I apologize. This is Lanercost Abbey. And this is up in Scotland. And Steve told me this is the place that Edward I used as his base for the invasion of Scotland before his death on the Solway Firth. So this is on the borderlands of Scotland, or near to Scotland, or in Scotland. In Scotland, near Scotland. So thank you, Steve, for that. And what an incredible image. And also, your drone is doing great things. Well done for the drone. Love it. So let us hop in to our thank yous. I'm also going to bang the comments up on stage. We like to have them on stage, and we like them wide, I believe. Nope, tall. I think that's how we like them. So we will do that. If you're watching me vertical, then that is over my face. I apologize for that. I don't know how to switch it around. So the people I have to thank Joseph, Jessie, Elverta, Yvonne, Rebecca, Shane, Carol, Snudpuckle, CocoCreates, Amy, Count Balerion, Sheri, Janet, Jenna, Mr. Dr. Cat, Scarlet OhHaha, Katie, Maia, Naomi, and Sarah. And thank you to La Donna in Texas for the jewels. I'm not sure what jewels are, but they're very pretty, I'm sure. This is new. Thank you very much. I'll have to look up what the jewels are. Spectacular. And Steve's come in with it's just south of Hadrian's Wall, only just. That was the image that we just saw on screen. So let us, without further ado, hop straight on in to our first update. And there we go. This is an update to the scrolls that were found out of Herculaneum and all of these various new technological things that have been done to read them. So this is the scroll out of Herculaneum. We've talked about how they managed to scan the inside without unfolding it somehow. They used X-ray scans and they also used AI. This has allowed the full surviving text from this papyrus to be revealed for the first time. So this hasn't been seen since CE 79. This is part of a challenge called the Vesuvius Challenge, where international computer scientists, imaging experts, and papyrologists, which is one of the best names of a job I've ever heard. I assume it's somebody who specializes in text on papyrus, but a papyrologist, fabulous, read the carbonized scrolls without damaging them. So instead of opening the scroll, they scan it with high-resolution X-rays at a place called the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility that's in France. They then rebuilt the pages in 3 dimensions, flattened them into digital sheets, and then trained AI models to spot ink that would be almost invisible against the burned papyrus. This is incredible. They recovered about 1.5 meters, which is nearly 5 feet, of continuous writing across 20 surviving columns. Parts of the papyrus are, however, missing. What they have, though, has now been read from beginning to end. So it's now the first complete digital reading of a sealed Herculaneum scroll. They believe it's a work of Stoic ethics, discussing human nature, self-control, learning, and moral growth. One of the passages talks about people losing their way when they drift from their own nature. Another talks about gaining wisdom through study and careful thoughts. They are also doing this to other scrolls, and apparently, according to the team, the progress on this is going really well. And there is one scroll that revealed its title without even being opened. It's been identified as the work of Philodemus on Gods, Book 8. So scholars already knew the treatise existed, but the new finding shows the work stretched across at least 8 books. They're now going to search for other scrolls for the missing parts of the series. There are more than 600 unopened Herculaneum scrolls that are still waiting to be studied. Most came from the Villa of the Papyri, which is a Roman estate thought to have belonged to the father-in-law of Julius Caesar. with these digital methods, there's now a path towards reading many ancient scrolls while also managing to keep them intact, whilst as fragile as they are. People are mentioning that this does look a little bit like a coprolite. I do agree. However, more words on this than your average coprolite, I would imagine. And silly Mericalese, another jewels, a goat trophy. Amazing. Thank you for the jewels. How fun. This is new. Jewels are fun. Is this like what they do on TikTok where people give people cowboy hats? Is that, I don't know what that is either. I'm showing my age now. I'm an elder millennial. Alack. Jessie, that's a really interesting point. Imagine how much current history would be lost because it's locked behind technology that we're woefully out of date in 100 years. That is, I mean, how much stuff do we think is stored on like a floppy disk? How many people still have floppy disk readers? We were walking around a supermarket the other day, me and my husband, and we saw there was still a DVD stand. How many people still have a DVD player? Like, we don't have a DVD player. Everything's gone digital. And when you think about it as well, like Kindle and other e-readers, those books only really exist in the cloud. You're sort of renting them permanently unless you find a way to download them as PDF. And even then, they're digital. Are we setting ourselves up for a lack of hard copy that could make doing history in 100 years, 500 years nearly impossible? I wonder. Steve said he remembers the BBC recording the entire Doomsday book on Laserdisc. I don't know what Laserdisc is. So just goes to show. And how does one play a Laserdisc? Brian, the archivist has been worried about this. The internet is really not forever. It's absolutely not. And of course, that's why the great thing about having copyright libraries, like the British Library, others obviously exist, is that the law states that if it's published in that country, they must hold a copy of it. Even then, there are books that should be in the British Library that are lost, or they've been misplaced on a shelf, or maybe they've even been pinched. So, for example, I've been trying to get. Whenever I go to the British Library, I always see if I can get hold of a copy of Mother Clapp's Molly House, because I want to read the history of the Molly houses. And it's always, you can never get it. Like, it always says it's out for rent, or it's missing, or something like that. So I have never, every time I've been to the British Library, I've always requested it. It's never appeared. I'm pretty sure it's lost somewhere. And I also can't buy a copy. It hardly ever comes up for sale. So yes, we are, I think, in a dangerous ground, because we are keeping things digitally. And I don't think many people in real life, I mean, archivists are, but I don't think many people are kind of going, well, what happens if this system fails? And while digitization is a great means of copy keeping, and things that are very fragile that may disintegrate, this becomes a permanent record. Well, it's only as permanent as the online file exists. LaDonna, we need hard copies like what the US Library of Congress and the Vatican uses to save ministry. Yeah. And the British Library. We need, and that's the other thing. Support your copyright library. The fact that the British Library is still hurting after that hack years ago, because seemingly the British government doesn't want to do the work to fund getting them out of the hole they're in, because the British Library used to have one of the most incredible online digital platforms for free, open access. Loads of it was open access, and you can't access those things anymore. Those blog posts, those articles, the images of manuscripts, they're not accessible because they're still struggling after the hack, and it will take so much money to get them right again. And I just don't understand why the British government isn't supporting it. I know that money is tight, but surely some things should be sacred, surely. Silly Americanese, we're headed to a place where small disasters can delete complete, redundancy in education, paper, microfiche, etc. Yeah, a small disaster can delete completely, absolutely. Dr. Kathleen Perillo, thank you so much for the jewels as well. I'm very, very pleased. Thank you. I'm very grateful. So that's, I hadn't even thought of that. Silly Americanese. What prevents an instant AI editing of historic documentation? I don't know. I mean, they can take somebody's face and body and make them say and do things they never said in places they've never been, and it looks increasingly plausible. So they can edit. I've seen edits of films that look like it's from the film, but I know it's not. So I don't know. That's an excellent question. What is to stop that? That's another frightening thing. CocoCreates. I saw a video of a machine cutting the spines off of books so they could be scanned more easily. I did see that. I wasn't aware they were like antiques. I wasn't aware about that, but they're old. But they look. I thought they were new. Oh Lord! Oh, that's upsetting. Ricky Cortez, Molly House is a first game meeting place. I don't think it's the first, but it's a very famous Georgian subcultural place, and I believe they have Molly House in the States as well. But it was a site. The Society for the Reformation of Manners used to raid the sites fairly regularly, and people would be punished, and there would be pilloried, and it could be very violent, and people died because they were being punished for being in Molly houses. So yes. Esmeralda, looks like Mother Clap's Molly House is available to borrow from Hathi. Oh, fabulous. I thought it might turn up on one of the kind of internet archives sooner rather than later, but I will be honest, there's a part of me that wants to get it out of the library because that keeps a record of the hard copy being read, and there's something important about that this is still material that's being read and used and respected. But yes, maybe that's a similar thing happens if you take it out of a digital library as well. My husband, he knows quite a lot about the AI stuff. He's working on this kind of for data protection and things. He responded to what prevents AI editing humans. We set control such as access permissions and instructions. Short of it going Skynet, we are the masters of our own downfall. And I suppose, yeah, we are, but I don't trust us. I don't trust us. That's the issue. Steve said, not concerned about the unbinding of a book as long as they rebind it again afterwards. The amount of edge of book they're taking off, I don't see how they're going to rebind it. In fact, the amount of spine they were cutting through, I'm like, are they going to actually miss words? It's not like they were taking out margins. That could take off the first word of sentences. I'm assuming they've aligned it properly, but who can tell? Who can tell? Better says It's like the Alexandra Library. It is, yes. Aaron Parnas reported on rare books being bought in bulk for AI training and then being destroyed. Why? Resell them, surely. No? Oh, this is really, do you know what? This is making me sad and dystopic. Some husband said AI isn't the problem, humans are. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Humans are the problem. Why? Okay, there's another update about this one, though. It's about stuff in the real world. Stay in the real world. People are queuing up. They're waiting for 9 hours online to get tickets to see the Maia tapestry. Well, they're not anymore because you can't queue up because they're all sold out. But they were. The virtual queues hit 80,000. So as much as AI might be a draw for people and people are very concerned about what AI might take away, it's very clear that people are incredibly interested by the IRL. At 80,000 people are prepared to queue at one time, are prepared to queue for 9 hours to see the Maia tapestry, which, to be fair, when it goes back to Maia, they could go and see it any time after that. I think it's really interesting that this is happening. They want to be part of this event. And so when they went on sale, the booking opened on Wednesday. By mid-morning, about 40,000 people were reportedly in line. By mid-afternoon, the number had swelled to 80,000. The museum was urging people to wait in the online queue rather than call or email. This is phenomenal. And another article pointed out that the British Museum's exhibition of the Maia tapestry brought in £2.5 million or $3.3 million in ticket sales when they went on sale July the 1st. This is a museum record. The tapestry has not been displayed in Britain in 1,000 years, and it's going to be here from September through to July 2027. The tickets for all of 2026 are sold out. A further batch for 2027 will be released in October. So I shall try and get tickets. If not, then I'll just fly over to Maia. Like I now I've got such FOMO. I'm gonna have to go see it. But obviously, if you're a British Museum member, then you get advanced access to the tickets, I believe. Betta, thank you so much for the husky. Love a husky. They're beautiful puppies. Gorgeous. So, more Maia tapestry. It is now at the British Museum. There was a secret transport to bring it over, so it is here, and the 70-meter tapestry was folded accordion style in a climate-controlled case placed inside a shock-absorbing cradle that was then put on a truck that went through the Channel Tunnel, or the Channel, if you will. An 11-hour trip escorted by police. The truck backed into a loading bay at the museum and the tapestry was unloaded. It spent days acclimatizing before being unpacked and then unfolded to be put on display in the exhibition. The Cullinan, who's in charge of the museum currently, said that it was like trying to get tickets for Glastonbury. Correct. Clearly, it's like trying to get tickets for Glastonbury. In return for this loan, the British Museum is going to loan treasures from the Sutton Hoo hoard and other items to museums in Normandy. So this is a kind of cultural exchange, which is it is really important that we do these sorts of things. And it's here, it survived, and it seems that all is going well. However, the debate continues on how many ding-dongs are in the Maia tapestry. So with it turning up we have news that once again it has erupted. Choice of words made deliberately. It has erupted once again. How many willies are in the Bio Tapestry? And I tell you what, if I manage to get tickets, I will spend the time counting the willies myself. I think the one in particular is the one that's on screen now. Is that a willy, or is that a scabbard for a sword? I mean, if it's a willy, the man should see a physician, because that looks inflamed. That looks inflamed and painful. So there we are. Those are the updates on the Bio Tapestry. We're not done with our updates, though, because the Smithsonian is also in the news. We've got two updates about the Smithsonian. And this is the Secretary of the Smithsonian, Lonnie G. Bench III, defended the institution after the White House issued a 162-page report that characterized the National Museum of African American History, the National Museum of American History, as a place which has become, quote, subject to institutional capture by a radical activist ideology that is fundamentally opposed to telling the noble, honest story of the great country we know and love. The email that was sent to staffers by the Secretary of the Smithsonian in part read, quote, while there will always be room for improvement, this report is not a fair characterization of the work and totality of the National Museum of American History. At the Smithsonian, our work is driven by scholarship, accuracy, and an uncompromising commitment to tell the fullness of America's story. As public servants and the keepers of this institution, we are charged with helping a nation find understanding, hope, clarity, and as a part of that duty, we are dedicated to excellence, reflection, and growth. According to the Smithsonian's charter, all 21 of its museums, 14 education and research centres, and the National Zoo are meant to be run independently of the federal government. The Smithsonian is overseen by Bunch and a board of regents, which includes Vice President Vance, Supreme Court Chief Justice, that's a really odd sentence to say, Justice John Roberts, and other members appointed by Congress. Bunch spoke at the Smithsonian's 250th anniversary special exhibition, which is called American Aspirations, and said, it's really important for people to understand that America is as much an ideal as it is a place, that it's a series of aspirations that have really shaped who this country is. And so for me, what's so powerful is to say, let us honour the words of Thomas Jefferson and the founders, but let us use those to challenge us to be better. And another Smithsonian update is this one. The House Republicans have said that the Smithsonian is too focused on, quote, oppressors and the oppressed. This is a subcommittee. House Republicans sharply questioned the director of the National Museum of American History, Anthea Hartig. The hearing was held by the House Subcommittee on Delivering on Government Efficiency, which is a branch of DOGE chaired by Republican Representative Tim Burchett. I think he's from Tennessee. In his opening remarks, Burchett said, quote, I feel like, feelings, the Smithsonian's become infected by a woke ideology that seeped into public displays, educational materials, and planning documents. The American story is the birth and growth of a great nation founded on powerful ideals and which we aim to fully achieve. But the museum's current telling, history is just an ongoing power struggle between oppressed and the oppressed. I highly doubt that that is how the Smithsonian paints it. However, hit dogs holler. If equality and growing equality feels like a threat, I'm going to hasten to argue that perhaps you are a victim of your own mediocrity. If you have a fear that things things becoming more equal will give you less opportunities. Maybe you should work harder. Maybe you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work harder. Because if other people just getting a chance and other questions happening, if that makes you feel vulnerable and like you're going to be under or unemployed, that's a skill issue. Work harder. Be better. Do your own laundry. Learn to cook. Ask yourself, what do you bring to the table? Just as a question. So this 162-page report issued on July 4th, the White House Domestic Policy Council accused the Smithsonian Museum of being, quote, subject to institutional capture by a radical activist ideology that is fundamentally opposed to telling the noble, honest story of the great country that we know and love. I mean, I haven't been to the Smithsonian, so I can't speak to how they are telling the history of America. So maybe this is absolutely spot on. Maybe I have a sense, though, considering the source, I have a sense that maybe this is not what's happening. The council faulted the National Museum of American History on multiple fronts, saying it underemphasized the founding fathers and early colonial and revolutionary history, was not sufficiently celebratory of the country's 250th anniversary, and that it engaged in, quote, anti-white, illegal alien, and transgender activism. It also accused the museum of trying to indoctrinate teachers and students through its exhibitions, programming, and teaching resources. Okay. Lauren Boebert, who is famed for her capacities for thinking, said, quote, you intend to use taxpayer-funded National Museum to push a racial narrative that divides Americans by their skin color and guilt. So Hartig kept a cool turn and replied, quote, so the Smithsonian is a non-partisan institution and we're very proud of it. This is why is the Smithsonian under attack? Just a quick question. Why is the Smithsonian the focus here? Is it because they also have so many institutions? Is it because they have 21 museums? So before the hearing, Hartig released a 2-page statement to the House Subcommittee in which he wrote, quote, when visitors, scholars and members of Congress, veterans and teachers tell us we've gotten something wrong or only half right, we welcome the feedback. We take it seriously and we make changes when the evidence supports them. When historians talk about reframing a traditional narrative, we do not mean erasing it. We mean adding the evidence, voices and objects that earlier tellings left out so that more Americans can see themselves in the national story. Examining the harder chapters of our history is not the same as hostility towards America. We can and do honour the Declaration, the Revolution, the Constitution, and our national symbols, and also tell the truth about the times the country fell short of its own founding ideals. Telling our history fully is not anti-American. It's a form of respect for the American people and a commitment to constantly be in pursuit of a more perfect nation. Hartig's also going to be placed before the House Administration Committee on Wednesday. Oh, this was, I assume that's already happened then. So Miriam Rose says the Smithsonian chose not to remove some exhibits that show the real history in America. So what they don't like some of the exhibits. Is that what's happening? Esmeralda P says, unless an institution portrays the US as faultless and the best, it's a target for Trump and his minions. Look, I get being patriotic, but I think that my interpretation and understanding of patriotism is recognizing the progress that your country has made. And in so many ways, progress is about recognizing mistakes and not repeating them. And the way one recognizes mistakes is to teach about them and to move forward in that knowledge. And it's not about self-flagellation. It's not about that. But it's about a recognition. LaDonna in Texas, history should be presented based on facts and research, not political agendas and personal issues. I mean, I think it's impossible that there aren't going to be political agendas and personal issues at play. And I think as well that as access to university education broadened out over the 20th century, as more people got their foot in the door, perhaps not as equitably to this day as it should be or could be, the histories that are being told, the things that are being looked into, they are shifted and changed based upon a person's lived experience. Would I have made a series on the difference between an early or medieval pregnancy, early modern or medieval pregnancy, and a modern pregnancy if I wasn't pregnant at the time? Is my experience of being a woman capable of pregnancy who is having a pregnancy in a time when, let's be completely clear, that is a personal event, but it's also inherently currently massively political. That's not my choice. But when my lived experience has been inherently politicized, then me telling those stories can look political. But if my body wasn't made into a battleground for control by people who don't know me and who should have no say over my body, then pregnancy becomes political. Femininity becomes political. Sexuality becomes political. And these are elements of the human condition. So to not include them in history is not doing history, because history is the human condition through the centuries. Jessie says that the White House doesn't like the Smithsonian has an exhibit on LGBT people and rights. I mean, why not? It's part of our history. And it's also part of people's lived experience today. I don't know what the answer is going to be here. But I know, for example, that when an institution gets government funding, so we have museums in the UK that are government funded, and there was for many years an understanding that the government funded them, but in terms of the job of staging exhibitions and setting them out and writing the captions and producing the materials around it, that was down to the experts in the museum, and that there should be no fear or favour or political intrusion into what gets said, what exhibition gets staged, and why. I do know for a fact that during the years of the previous administration in this country, the Tories, I know that people who are working for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport would phone up our publicly funded institutions and threaten them with a cut of funding if they didn't put things on the way they wanted them to be put on. And whatever, I think that is a massive overstep that should not be happening. That when politics, when government starts instructing publicly funded institutions, taxpayer funded institutions, what they're allowed to show the public, I don't like that at all. I don't like it at all. Wheezy Squeezebox said, as the feminist said in the 1970s, the personal is political. Yeah, and do you know what? In an ideal world, those things should be separate. Public political life should be about the organization of society, of infrastructure, of things that allow people to live their lives in the way they choose, in a way that does not harm others. That should be what politics is doing. But when there is bleed into the most private, sacred parts of the human experience, and they are attempting to legislate it, then the personal becomes political. But that isn't the person's choice. That is the government's choice. That is the lawmaker's choice. They've opened the door there. And also, when they do so, the political becomes the ethical. So a person's in a climate where the political is personal, on top of that, the political becomes the ethical, the moral. So these were our updates. Let us hop into our repatriations and decolonization news now. So first up, we have got Klaus Kohlmann is now 98 years old, but he still remembers being a little boy and looking at a Van Gogh painting that hung in his grandfather's Berlin villa. It was there until the 1930s. The work depicts Van Gogh's doctor, Theophile Perron, standing by a gnarled tree, hands on hips, in front of the mental hospital he ran, where Van Gogh was a patient. It's now in the collection of the Musée d'Orsay and is part of France's national art collection, but Kohlmann claims that it rightfully belongs to him. For about 9 years, Kohlmann, who now lives in the US, has waged a legal battle to prove that this painting was looted from his German Jewish grandfather Felix after the Nazis came to power. France recently passed laws that facilitates the return of Nazi-looted art, so one might expect that such a request would fall squarely into the new law's intended use. However, France's Commission for the Compensation of Victims of Spoliation, or CIVS, decides which works constitute Nazi-looted art, and they are stumped by the case. So the person running the committee says that the Kohlmann family was surely a victim of anti-Semitic persecution and was subject to plunder in this context. Yet, apparently, it's difficult to determine with certainty whether the painting was among the looted assets that were sold under duress. He added, there are gaps in the painting's provenance between June 1932 and February 1934, which don't help. They do know the painting somehow pops up in Paris in 1934, where it was at the gallery of the historic dealer Paul Rosenberg, and it was eventually donated to the Louvre. Kohlmann asserts that his father, Hartmut, always maintained the family art collection had been intact when the Nazis rose to power, and that the family's belongings were stolen soon after. Felix Kohlmann, who in addition to collecting art, ran a light bulb making company. He died of a heart attack a few days after Kristallnacht. His son's young family fled Germany just in time. The family's lawyer says the case is a typical example of Nazi plunder in need of immediate restoration. And he points to the best practices established in 1988 by the Washington Principles. This is for handling Nazi confiscated art and was signed by 44 nations. It states that consideration should be given to unavoidable gaps or ambiguities in the provenance in light of the passage of time and the circumstances of the Holocaust era. This case is now in the hands of a judge and a committee of government officials, with the next key meeting due to take place in September. So if we get any more updates on that, I will let you know. A New York gallery has surrendered 20 artifacts that were looted from Cambodia, or believed to be looted from Cambodia. A New York gallery has surrendered 20 valuable artifacts that are linked to Douglas Latchford. We've heard about him a number of times, that he is accused of trafficking items looted from Cambodia. These are stone and bronze items that date from the 2nd century BC to the 13th century AD. Including depictions of Khmer deities, mythical figures carved from sandstone, and bronze ceremonial objects. The gallery decided to relinquish them after being approached by the Department of Homeland Security with evidence the objects had been illegally looted from Cambodia. The Homeland Security took custody of the objects in 2022 and 2023, but the paperwork filed in court on the 25th of June completed the seizure before the items were returned to Cambodia. The court papers credited the gallery with voluntarily surrendering the artifacts it had purchased from the dealer after learning about his activities and the history of other items that he was connected to. The gallery is not named in the documents, but the Cambodian government identified it as the Antiquarian Fine Ancient Arts Gallery, which is on Madison Avenue in Manhattan. But that gallery has not responded to a request for comment from the person writing this article. So they have gone back, and I think Latchford, there may be other pieces from Latchford that are going to be going back as well. Ancestral remains of the Rapa Nui people have begun a long journey home after spending 143 years at an Australian museum. So these are remains from a remote Polynesian island that have been in the Australian Museum. These are remains of people from the Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island. They were removed from sacred burial sites during European naval expedition in 1882. 17 of the members' remains and a sample of human hair were purchased by the museum in Sydney the following year. And then for over a century, they were within the Natural Science and Culture Institution, which holds more than 22 million objects and specimens in its collection. On Thursday, the ancestral remains began a long journey home, accompanied by a Rapa Nui delegation. It's going to the repatriation will be overseen by the Chilean government, given the island is now a special territory of Chile. So custodian documents were signed at a formal farewell with a room filled with the sounds of a Fijian farewell song, the ukulele, and a ceremonial exchange by delegates. Where are we? So this is a lengthy and structured process behind this repatriation. It's been 2 years since the museum's Pacifica team first engaged with Rapa Nui descendants. There is no legally binding law that compels Australian institutions or individuals to repatriate ancestral remains. Rather, Australia instead typically undergoes repatriation through voluntary agreements, policy, and ethics, which is in contrast to the United States, where there is a legal compulsion to repatriate Native American ancestral remains and cultural items, and there's a federal law about it. The delegation thanked everyone involved in the repatriation process, quote, from the bottom of our hearts. Council President, Uncle Carlos Paoa, painted a picture of the lives of the deceased lived before their remains were removed from burial sites. They were leaders of their tribes, important people within their community, he said. There were 36 tribes, we're told, that lived on Rapa Nui awaiting the repatriation. Quote, it's a very important event for all the clans on the island. From each of these areas, human remains were taken away all those years ago. Our Iwi Tupana are not just human remains. They're not objects. They are our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our ancestors, caring, spiritual, protective energy. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about there being damage from fires in the States and also in Europe. The weather has been scary. I hope I hope no one's near the fires, or if you are, I hope that you are safe and that everyone that you love is safe as well. There's been a general ban over here on people starting campfires or barbecues, people being told to be incredibly careful, as they should be. It's one of the risks, though, I think, of the hosepipe bans. So on the one hand, obviously, people don't need to be watering their lawns. It's a waste of water in this extreme heat. However, surely on the flip side, keeping the ground wet, keeping the plants wet, keeping the soil wet, it must mean that the grass is less likely to catch fire. And therefore, if there is some kind of conflagration, surely watering the grass regularly prevents it from spreading. Shane says, am I glitching? Oh. I shouldn't be glitching. I don't see, I can't feel it glitching. So if I am, I apologize. Venomous Care Bear, there are wildfires here every summer. However, most are arson in origin. God, that's horrible. Oh, gosh. Next up, decolonization / repatriation. This was a big commentary lots of commentary pieces have done this about Zendaya wearing ancient Iranian jewelry at an Odyssey event. People comparing it to Kim Kardashian wearing Marilyn Monroe's dress and potentially damaging it. And there's been a lot of backlash. There's claims that it was hijacking Iran's contributions to humanity. These are Iranian artifacts dating back to about 700 BC. The earrings belong to Baron London, a Mayfair-based gallery and dealer whose website states, quote, with a reputation for discretion, the gallery works privately with collectors, estates and institutions to uncover and place pieces of significance. A formal statement from Baron says the artifacts that were brought from another London jeweler in 2025, quote, are attributed to the Zawai hoard, discovered in northwestern Iran in the late 1940s. This was a trove of gold, silver, bronze, and terracotta found in 1947 and looted by shepherds. The surviving pieces were, quote, sold in antique markets out of Iran in the 1960s and are now scattered in different museums and private collections. Professor Susan Baibe, an Iranian-born art historian and Courtauld Institute professor, said, quote, it was shocking to see that no one thought maybe this is not a good idea. Expressing outrage that Zendaya was wearing the ancient object, she said, quote, there's not enough cultural knowledge and cultural sensibility among those who dress celebrities, those who accessorize them, and those who put them up as symbols of beauty and power and an expression of the movie's high-mindedness. So apparently representatives of Zendaya and her stylist were contacted for comment. This article doesn't talk about that response coming in. I'm not sure if it did or not. This, of course, connects to other Western institutions that hold ancient artifacts. So the British Museum holding the Benin bronzes, Ethiopian altar tablets, and Parthenon sculptures. Connecting it to Kim Kardashian damaging Marilyn Monroe's dress, I do think it's fundamentally different. While I think these items probably shouldn't be worn by anybody, but equally, I don't know that they should be in this collection in the first place either. So I think that we're at the end point here of something going potentially wrong in the first place. I do think it's fundamentally different to Kim Kardashian wearing and possibly damaging a piece of fashion history. There is nothing to point to me that Zendaya wearing these earrings has done anything to damage them. Or wearing these artifacts as earrings, there's nothing that indicates to me that they are damaged through this process. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong in that. Dr. Annalisa Bear, who's an archaeologist and producer who made a video about the earrings, she garnered criticism for perceived condoning of the use of the artifacts. She said the main ethical issue is the earrings themselves are made out of looted antiquities. She actually pretty much what I was going to say. Zendaya wearing them is kind of a secondary fact, but because she's worn them on the red carpet for a major international movie premiere, this has suddenly put it into the public eye in a way we haven't really seen before. In some ways, I don't think this is probably her intention, but in some ways, it's really brought home the fact that there are these looted pieces floating around Europe and America when maybe they shouldn't be. So I think there's also an issue that I don't necessarily know if there is. Coco suggests that making them into earrings damage them. I'm not sure that they're saying that damage has been done. However, these are. I think they are attributed to being sacred objects. So wearing them in this way potentially strips the appropriate meaning out of them. The people who own the item said the intention behind the loan was never commercial. It was to celebrate the remarkable artistry of ancient Persian goldsmiths and to encourage a wider appreciation of one of the world's great artistic traditions. At a time when Iran is self-represented through the lens of contemporary politics, we hope these earrings can also remind audiences of the country's profound cultural, artistic, and historical legacy. Rebecca says that it's linked to the Persian Empire, which is linked to the actual historical Troy, so at least it's relevant. I think that from everything I've seen about the choices that Zendaya's stylist makes, they are very carefully and well thought out in terms of their connection to what's being done. I wonder if the provenance and ethical argument here wasn't looked into as perhaps it should have been. I'm sure those conversations will be being had. AJ says they should be left in a museum. Yeah, I don't believe they're in a museum currently. So Baron London is a Mayfair-based gallery and dealer. So are they exhibits in a gallery or are they on the shop floor? I don't know. But I don't think we can safely say that they're in a museum currently. And also, what museum should they be in? The problem is that items here are looted and sold, and sometimes centuries ago, people claim historic precedent. Yeah, I mean, I think the issue is that these potentially were looted. So there's a part of me that thinks this. If I'm never going to be in Zendaya's position, but if I were in Zendaya's position and this had happened to me, I'd be livid with my stylist. I would personally be livid because it's not something that I would do. I wouldn't wear potentially looted artifacts unless I had a very clear additional statement to make in the rest of my clothing. If I was going to make a statement about the need to repatriate, in that circumstance, there might be an argument for wearing looted goods on my own body. It'd have to be a really good political demonstration for me. I'd potentially be furious if this had been something that occurred to me, been done to me. However, on the flip side, we are having a massive conversation. This was all over social media about where things should be, who gets to possess them, and what can be done with them. Because while I think everyone kind of balks at the idea of these being worn as a fashion accessory, in taking artifacts out of their context, how is this any more shocking, really, than the Benin bronzes being a collection of masks hung up in the museum, in the British Museum, on a wall when they have been asked to be repatriated, when they are essentially the spoils of war? Is the way the Benin bronzes are currently displayed, is that actually, and have been for years, is that not potentially as, if not more shocking than what's happening here? Because it's literally like a wall of the spoils of war. Brian Valko says, is it looted? For sure. It's if this came from, so it's attributed to the Ziwai hoard. If it is from that hoard, then yes, it was looted and then sold on. But I don't know how sure we are it's from that hoard. Right, now though, we're on to new news. And this is also another question that perhaps connects to this. Somebody's bought a dinosaur. And this is the other thing as well, talking about who gets to own objects, where they get to be. How do we feel about this? A Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton, nicknamed Gus, has sold for nearly $72 million. It's the most expensive fossil sold at auction. It measures 11.6 meters. It's made up of 183 fossilized bones, meaning it's one of the largest and most complete tyrannosaurs discovered. It was found on a South Dakota ranch in 2021, and it sold after a 10-minute battle between 7 bidders at Sotheby's in New York. So it's about 63% complete. The purchase was made by an anonymous buyer, and therefore it's part of this surging market apparently for dinosaur bones. So this has now gone into private hands. How do we feel about that? How do we feel about music? This is Kate Lister. So she wrote an opinion piece on the Zendaya earrings and the dinosaur, which I need to check out. I love her writing and her podcast. Kate Lister's brilliant. How do we feel about this? Silly Americanese, where was he found? The dinosaur was found in Dakota. Music feels angry. Yeah, I mean, granted. Snudpuckle, it's not something you can keep in your living room. Depends, my love, on the size of your living room, doesn't it? I'm of the opinion, with all due respect, if you can pay $72 million plus auction fees, possibly, for a Tyrannosaurus skeleton, then you probably have a living room that requires some kind of golf buggy to get around. Why are we doing this? Are you going to decorate it for Christmas? Put some tinsel on its tail? Little flashing lights, little fairy lights in its mouth for Christmas? Is it going to be a Christmas Tyrannosaurus? If your mate has bought this, just give him a question as to why. Why? What I've got to say, I also don't really understand because I always think if money was no object, what would I do? What would I do? Blah, blah, blah. And maybe I'd fund a gallery. But the thought of owning artifacts, like, I don't know, owning your own Monet, owning a first folio. On the one hand, I recognise that does appeal to people, but doesn't the panic of restoration, maintenance, climate control, why would you take that on? Having a first folio in your own house would be like having the most expensive exotic pet known to man that's just and it's just constantly trying to disintegrate. The stress of that would make me feel unwell. Steve points out, remember, it's related to your budgie. It's a big bloody budgie. Silly Reckoning says so kids can climb on it. Can you imagine? I'd be unwell. You can imagine it's some oil baron's hall centerpiece. Yeah. Well, they're trying to hurtle us towards another extinction event, so why not have evidence of the first in their living room? Oh my god, that's what they've done, isn't it? It's branding. It's branding. Extinction event, not so bad the first time. Look at our fun dinosaurs. Music. Kate just said it's just another way the rich are ruining everything. They do ruin things. CocoCreates, my 4-year-old nephew would have bought this without hesitation. Yes, no doubt. And in many ways, billionaires and the trillionaire we have are very much like 4-year-olds in that they probably need a nap and maybe to be medicated. Steve says, remember their schools have thought the art market is just one huge Ponzi fraud. I think there's, if it would be, it would also be an exceptional way to launder money. My husband said, dinosaur or chinchilla? A dinosaur is safer. Well, yes. A dinosaur is safer. Our chinchillas were. So there we go. However, more dino new news is this one. A new species of Triassic dinosaur has been discovered in the shores of Zimbabwe. So this adds to evidence that southern Africa hosted a richer diversity of dinosaurs during the late Triassic epoch than previously recognized. So the late Triassic, roughly 210 million years ago, this is the 5th dinosaur species to be named from the country. It looks pretty cool. This is a partial skeleton of something that's been named Musango. It's a big long word. Matusodonaensis. If I've butchered that last bit, I apologize. The specimen includes a dinosaur's vertebra, limb bones, and pieces of its hip and shoulder girdles. The estimate is that the animal would have measured 4.5 meters or 15 feet in length and weighed in at around 222 kilograms. It's thought it belonged to a group of early sauropodomorphs, which would eventually give rise to giant long-necked sauropods. Quote, the discovery suggests that we've found so far is only the tip of the iceberg. We've already got one other new species that we've got yet to describe, while our team has been told about other fossils from the region that we've yet to look at. I think there's even more dinosaurs still to be found there. Steve said that's something about its teeth from understanding of Latin. Yes. Don. Yes. It's unclear what about its teeth. And how they've got to teeth. If they don't seem to have jaw. Interesting. Clue says silky chickens have black bones too. It's a fun fact. That's because chickens are dinosaurs. All birds are dinosaurs. When we see a seagull, because also, for those in the UK, particularly if you live in Brighton, have I got any Brightonians in the house? If you live in Brighton, you will know that Brighton seagulls are savage. People say in the UK the apex predator is the badger. They have never encountered that, and it is, but they at the same time have not encountered a ravenous Brightonian seagull because they are fat. They are fat and aggressive, and they will break your face for a burger. They are the size of toddlers and they tantrum, and I'm afraid of them. So if you're in Brighton, you know what I mean. Anybody who's lived in Brighton, ever lived in Brighton, UK, Esmeralda P, I have the skull of a Brightonian seagull. Is it in fact the size of your living room? Because they are massive. Steve, the chip stealing rap to the seaside. Yes, a guy I knew got his nose broken. Like, I'm talking claret pouring out everywhere because a seagull wanted his burger and it headbutted him like he was in a pub on West Street. It's wild. I don't know what that word means, Esmeralda. It matched the lipelorodon I knitted. What's that? What's a lipelorodon and how does one knit one? Tell me more. I don't know that word. I love new words. Esmeralda, it's in my living room. It's only about 5 inches long. Well, you must have got a baby. Because the modern Brighton seagull is the size of an angry toddler and it will headbutt you in the face. Oh, it's a type of dinosaur. I also don't know what type of dinosaur that is. I'll have to look it up. My husband will know. He loves dinosaurs. Actually, my son will also know. Onwards. We have so many slides to get through. We're already at 1 hour and 17. I'm diving right in. Okay. Early humans might have used fire 1.8 million years ago, which is almost doubling the age of the oldest known evidence for this feat. This is the Wonderwork cave in South Africa. Maybe this should have been in updates because we've talked about Wonderwork a lot recently. They have found burned bones in a dirt layer associated with Homo erectus. And the inhabitants probably hadn't mastered fire making, but they think they could have moved and maintained flames from a natural fire. So this is the Wonderwork Cave is in South Africa's Kalahari Desert, and it's been occupied by human ancestors for nearly 2 million years. The co-author of the study said, evidence of fire from such ancient sites is often subtle and difficult to detect. Our study provides new tools for identifying traces of ancient burning and reveals that fire was repeatedly present deep inside Wonderwork Cave. They used luminescent properties of burned bone to test for evidence of fire use. They shone a specific wavelength of blue light onto bone fragments and then looked at them through a coloured filter. Burned bones would glow while unburned bones remained dark. So the evidence doesn't imply that early hominins ignited fire. They also say that flames could not have made their way into the cave without being helped by human hands or humanoid hands. These burned bones were located about 100 feet from the cave entrance, which is too deep inside to have been reached by a natural wildfire, the team say. The team hopes that their new methods will help other researchers unravel details of fire using foundations at sites around the world. Anthropologists view the ability to use and produce fire as a crucial milestone in the evolution of our lineage. Some say the beginnings of fire put our ancestors on a path that led to modern humans. The Greeks thought the flames came to them from high on Mount Olympus. For research, however, the answers may lie underground. How cool is that? Brian says, have I done a video on the Brighton Pavilion in the Prince region? I haven't. I'm going to email the Brighton Pavilion. I've been to the Brighton Pavilion a lot. I think the Brighton Pavilion is one of the coolest places in the UK. We have some incredible museums in the UK. And obviously, we've got the heavy hitters that everyone knows about, and I love them. But, for example, places like the Mary Rose doesn't get the attention it deserves. That's why I make the videos that I make. I've now made 3 videos connected to the Mary Rose. And also the Brighton Pavilion is another one. another incredible museum in this country that doesn't get the attention it deserves. And I'm sure there are so many more. There are places that are on my hit list that I haven't been to yet, my bucket list, if you will. So I haven't been to Wealdon Down and Devon. I really want to go there. I really want to go to the Black Country Living Museum. That looks, all the social media I've seen around that looks really cool. I want to go back to the Jorvik Museum. I went there when I was a kid. There are so many cool museums. So yes, I would love to do a video on the Prince Regent's and Brighton Pavilion. Brian also asks, are people on the Prince Regent side or Carolina Brunswick side or both or neither? I mean, I'm more on Carolina Brunswick side, more. But to be honest, I'm actually on Princess Charlotte's side. My lord, what a miserable upbringing that poor girl had. I'm on their daughter's side. They led her a dog's life. And then for her life to end so early and so tragically, I think they're both a nightmare, to be honest. Ooh. Steve's off on Hollybobs tomorrow. Going to get to see the Caerleon Roman Amphitheatre. Oh, yeah. Do you know what that's reminded me? Weirdly, that's reminded me. I want to go to Tintagel. That's another one that I haven't been to. I'd really like to go to Tintagel. That looks cool. I hope you have a lovely holiday. And I assume you'll be taking your drone? Question mark. Send me pictures. Thank you. Thank you. Look at this. A shiny thing's been found, and I enjoy it. An Elamite helmet with divine figures. This is a 3,500-year-old bronze armor depicting a raptor and gold-plated gods. Look how cool it is. And I love the way bronze goes green. So cool. So this is the Elamite culture, an ancient civilization that flourished for nearly 3 millennia in what is now Iran. It's thought this helmet was worn by a warrior king. It's a dome-shaped bronze helmet, roughly 8.5 inches or 21.6 centimeters in diameter, with a thin cutaway area on the front to go over the wearer's eyebrows. This is the collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was made by a master artisan of the Elamite culture. It's really cool. So you've got 3 gold deities, 2 female, 1 male. The male deity's got a vessel of water with water cascading out of it, so thought to be an Elamite water god. The goddesses wear horned headdresses and jewellery, and they hold their hands up in a gesture of prayer. A raptor, a bird of prey, is positioned vertically over the water god, symbolising the bird of prey on the battlefield that awaits the victims of the warrior king who wore this helmet. This certainly would have been somebody who was of high rank wearing this, likely symbolic as well as functional, and the deities are there probably to ward off evil and conflict on the ancient battlefield. It's so cool. So cool. Hannah points out shiny. Yes, I do. There are quite a few actually shiny finds we're going to talk about. I love it. And we've got a 3,000-year-old Irish Bronze Age site that might be one of Europe's earliest town-like settlements. It's thought this is one of the first large organised settlements to develop in Western Europe. Targeted excavation has identified evidence of more than 200 possible wooden domestic structures at Hoy's Fort. This indicates a dense and structured settlement far exceeding what would be expected in a typical hill fort. The paper says that the landscape points to a thriving and well-connected Bronze Age community, with bronze and gold working, large-scale feasting, and high-status artifacts all seemingly indicated on the site. Dr. Patrick Gleeson, who's a senior lecturer in medieval archaeology at Queen's School and the Natural and Built Environment, said, quote, "The study makes it clear that we are not looking at isolated monuments, but a single, highly organised landscape. Our work shows that Hoy's Fort, the King Stable, and Creevero earthworks were all part of an interconnected system, carefully structured to bring together settlement, production, and ritual. The study also shows there's a clear functional zoning across the landscape, with production, feasting, and settlement focused at Hoy's Fort, while ritual deposition, ideological practice concentrated at the King's Stables. Together, these elements reveal a highly organised system and engineered landscape." This is so cool. The scale and uniqueness of this landscape offer valuable insight into the complexity and influence of late Bronze Age communities, significantly contributing to our broader understanding of social organisation, economic activity, and ritual practice within European prehistory. So cool. More shiny things, and I love them. Look at it. 3,400-year-old gold diadems from Cyprus reveal a Bronze Age trade across the ancient Mediterranean. Look at all of these pieces. It's believed that these were made by local goldsmiths who blended styles from Egypt, the Aegean, and Near East into designs that were used in Cyprus. This came from 8 tombs at the Hala Sultan-Teke, a major port city during the late Bronze Age. They found 9 gold diadems which were worn across the forehead, 2 gold mouthpieces to be placed over the lips of the dead, and this is a study that's appeared in the Oxford Journal of Archaeology. So cool. They found the diadems combine artistic ideas from several cultures. So one's got a sun-crowned bull that's linked to Egyptian god Apis, along with palm tree and rosette patterns found in Mycenaean art. These designs show that local artisans shaped foreign ideas into their own style instead of copying imported objects. It's believed that they were made in Cyprus, the gold arriving through trade, with possible sources including Nubia in Italy or the Adatepe gold mine in present-day Bulgaria. I love, though, how this is kind of element of which the combining cultures, that even back in those days, these accessories that may have ritual purposes or may just be high fashion, there is a kind of culture vulturing there. There is an absorption of other people's religious items into what could potentially be jewellery. I find that really fascinating. These all came from burials of adult men and women. However, there was one diadem that belonged to a child who would have been about 4 or 5. Another decorated with bull's head was buried with a woman who was between 35 and 40 years old. Since bulls often symbolise male power, the finds suggest this image likely held a wider meaning in Cypriot society. Only part of this tomb has been excavated. Even so, these gold ornaments show how a once thriving port city brought together people, goods, and artistic ideas from across the ancient Mediterranean. And as Steve points out, it's not just the shiny, shiny gold, because there's also incredibly decorated ceramic potteryware that looks, some of it looks like shields. The bowls look like they have the kind of spiral of a shield coming out. This is affluence. This is affluence and fashion and luxury. And it's cool. Inscriptions have been found in Western Turkey at the ancient site of the Phrygian city Achamonia. One of the inscriptions says, Demades, son of Diogenes, commissioned a torch-bearing statue or a lamphaderos. Demades was a priest who was known to scholars from an early inscription dating to AG 68. It's thought that his lights were used to light Acrimonia's main street to benefit the city's residents. So essentially, he is paying to put in street lighting. That's cool. There's also Heracles, son of Menander, and his son Hermogenes, erecting a statue of Demeter Carphorus, a goddess associated with fertility and the harvest. Heracles also sponsored and organised games for the festival honouring Asclepius, the god of medicine. 2 funerary poems are inscribed on stelae, dedicated to 2 men thought to have been comrades in the Roman army. There's another funerary inscription commemorating Mandana, a high priestess, that was commissioned by her husband. Women sometimes shared priesthood with their husbands, but they were also able to occupy such positions independently. This is really cool. And there is, for more information on the study, if you go to number 17, there are clicky links for you to go and find. Steve asks, this inscription is in Greek, not Latin. That's, you just tested me there. Yes, it's in Greek. Indeed. So the one I'm looking at on the picture it appears to be Greek. Yes. I'm going to go with yes. Correct me if I'm wrong. Miriam Rosie says, I like shiny things and corvids. Same. Yeah, Steve says it's odd they're in the Roman. It is odd they're in the Roman army. It's making me second guess myself. Just look at this picture. I'll give you. It's not massively clear, but I'm pretty sure that's Greek. Interesting question. I'll have to look into that. Why would Roman soldiers be commemorated in Greek? Unless they were, unless they were, maybe as Venomous points out, unless they were Greeks in the Roman army. Maybe that's it. It's unclear from this article. It's quite a short article whether they were Greek in origin, the soldiers. Iron Age stela have been found. Let's click to the next slide. There we go. In the Iberian Peninsula. There are no human remains in these images. This is very similar stuff we've seen previously, because when we saw it before, what that man is holding up, I was pretty sure it was a willy. I don't know if it is a willy or not. So they've got thousands of standing stones recorded across Iberia. So in 2018, workers found a carved diadem stele beside a modern road. Then they started excavating the site around. They found 3 main burial types when they did so. The oldest were Bronze Age cist tombs, rectangular graves cut into bedrock and lined with stone slabs. One contained cremated human remains, 2 ceramic vessels, and a bronze fibula. Another held no bones or grave goods, suggesting an early disturbance or perhaps different burial practices. Later Iron Age graves followed a different style. They used stone-lined pits covered by large cairns. There's one well-preserved tomb that contained 2 large urns filled with cremated remains. Other graves were damaged by looters, ancient looters, although archaeologists still recovered a bronze fibula, an iron fulcata knife, and fragments of human bone. The cemetery expanded, we think, in a planned way. New tombs surrounding an older central monument without cutting into earlier graves. Each burial respected the space of those already there, showing careful planning over several generations. The article says, quote, "For the first time, archaeologists have a complete archaeological setting linking decorated stela with burials and an ancient communication route. The evidence shows these carved stones served several purposes. They marked graves, identified important places along travel routes, and reflected the ties between communities connected through trade and shared traditions across the prehistoric Iberia." How cool is that? Italy has bought a famed Etruscan tomb and displayed it in a Roman museum. They have bought Etruscan tomb frescoes for 15 million euros. This is one of the most important pieces of ancient Etruscan artwork, and it's now on permanent display at Rome's National Etruscan Museum of Villa Giulia. The state stepped in to buy the frescoes tomb. So they spent 50 million euros on a series of celebrated frescoes found in the central hall of the tomb, painted between 340 and 320 BCE. They combine scenes from Greek mythology with episodes of Etruscan history. Among the best-known scenes is the sacrifice of Trojan prisoners by Achilles and the liberation of Etruscan noblemen by Mastana. This is the only portrait of a Roman king that we actually have. The tomb is found on land that belonged to the aristocratic Torlonia family, and the frescoes remain largely out of sight in their private collection until now. When the paintings were kept by the Torlonia family and their heirs, many of the tomb's treasures, including Greek vases, jewellery, Etruscan bronzes, were given at the time as payment to the archaeologists and their backers. Over the following years, these artifacts were then sold off, scattering the tomb's contents among major global institutions like the Louvre in Paris and, guessed it what, the British Museum in London. To mark the new exhibition, European museums have loaned Villa Giulia these artifacts, which are now being shown alongside the frescoes for the first time in 160 years. Quote, "When we said we would buy the Francois tomb, every museum was so happy to participate in this project. It really is a great international collaboration." Oh, Steve says if you click on the arrows, so in these images, if you click on the arrows, there are more images, including some shinies. Well, I can't do that on screen because this is a slideshow that I've created, but I certainly will go and have a look at those shinies later. That's very cool. This is next up. This is something slightly different, but it's actually, I found this really interesting because I'm a big believer in the value of experimental archaeology. I'm also a big believer in the more that we can talk about historical finds and events and questions that we have, that they can reach outside the bounds of the historically trained community, I think the more answers we find. And so here we've got, I don't love the headline, a hairstylist with no archaeology degree. Okay. No need for the bit, but a hairstylist solved an ancient Roman mystery that scholars have got wrong for centuries. So for centuries, people believed that these really heavily, intricately braided, seemingly gravity-defying updos that are found in Roman hairstyles must have been achieved with hair pieces and wigs. However, a professional hairdresser has since proved them wrong. She comes from Baltimore. Her name's Janet Stevens, and she's been fascinated with hair for her entire life. But in 2001, she became really interested in ancient hairdressing. So what you're telling me is she may not have an archaeology degree, but since 2001, so 25 years, she has been hyper fixated on historical hairstyles and researching them. She is she's a hair expert. She's a historical hair expert by this point. She visited the Walters Museum of Art and she saw a collection of Roman busts that were displayed from all angles. And she was able to walk around them. And that allowed her, with her prior knowledge of being a hairdresser, to sort of get the logic, as she says, behind these hairstyles. And rather than being wigs, she thought that these were down to ingenuity. She was determined to solve the matter. She committed herself to years of both hands-on experimentation and historical research. The latter was far outside her wheelhouse, especially when it came to deciphering historical texts. Still, she pushed through, using Google Translate to work through line after line of Latin. In 2005, she spots a clue that no one's noticed before. I'm sorry, she's translating directly out of Latin. She's a historian. She's a historian. And the term in Latin, acus, has several meanings, including single prong hairpin and needle and thread. In the context of ancient Roman hairdressing, translators had long interpreted it to mean single prong hairpin, which, to be fair, does make sense. However, maybe what it's actually talking about is needle and thread. And so they repeat again, just like that. A Baltimore hairstylist with zero experience in archaeology made groundbreaking archaeological discovery. I'm going to say that her knowledge of creating hairstyles, her years of dedicated training, that she then turned that absolute, as Jessie points it, a subject matter expert. She took that expertise and simply redirected it towards the historical past. It feels like they're downplaying what she's done here. So her findings were published in the Journal of Roman Archaeology. What more has she got to do? So she has got experience in archaeology. She is published in a journal. What? So she's made a video, Julia Dommer Forensic Hairdressing, which was presented at the Archaeological Institute of America. In what way is she not doing archaeology then? I beg you. In 2013, she recreated the hairstyle of Roman Vestal virgins, and she's got a YouTube channel featuring historical hair recreations alongside demonstrations of more modern techniques. I'm going to watch her stuff. She's so cool. This article says the biggest takeaway is that to truly understand history, we need to view it through both an academic and a practical lens. It's a wonderful example of how our own life experiences give us a unique insight into seemingly unrelated subjects in surprising ways. I absolutely agree. But this article seems to be positioning this as if no one's doing this kind of work, as if experimental archaeology hasn't been around for decades, if the majority of the academic history community recognizes the value of hands-on experience. Why are we reinventing the wheel here? Subi, I love this trend of subject experts, people working hair, wood, or whatever, coming up with answers to historical questions in their field. It's fantastic. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think to downplay the fact that she's, they're saying it without saying it, that, oh, well, she's just a hairdresser. But she stumbled across this thing. She didn't stumble across it. She dedicated years of her life painstakingly to translating Latin using Google Translate. She is an archivist. She's an archival researcher who then did experimental archaeology. Like, let's call this what it is. Venomous Care Bear, the article sounds condescending to say this. I'm sure that's not the intention, but it's definitely raised my hackles. My husband's just said, Attenborough was a TV executive, Tony Robinson a comedian, Danny Dyer a Cockney geezer from Canning Town, just down the road from us. It doesn't matter where you come from. This is a meaningful contribution to academia. The snobs can jog on. Absolutely. I agree. James Byers asks, evening all, is there a history of the comb over? Almost certainly. There is definitely a history of people storing bits of hair. The history of hair is really fascinating. Body hair, removal of body hair, making pads and hair pieces out of your own hair, hair jewellery, the seductive perceptions of hair, the eroticism around hair, long hair, short hair, revolutionary hair. I find hair very interesting. Very interesting. A 1600-year-old Roman guardian spirit has been found in an archaeological site. This is found at Vindolanda in Northumberland. This is a former Roman fortress from the 4th century. We've talked about Vindolanda a lot. This sculpture is now going on display after conservation. It's being conserved and having studied before it's going to go on public display at the museum site near Hexham. So originally they didn't know what the sculpture was or who it was of, but the Hadrian's Wall scholars identified it as a protective spirit called Genius by the Romans. In one hand, it holds a cornucopia, which is a motif of a horn overflowing with food. It symbolizes abundance and prosperity. In the other hand, it's holding a patera, a shallow dish used in ritual offerings. Rebecca, talking about the hairdresser, hair archaeologist, maybe. This would never be framed in this way if it's a more male-associated field. There's also definitely some little lady hairdresser. Do you know what? I agree, because when a person who has been an apprentice and is now a master craftsman in blacksmithing, when they figure out how a shield was forged or how armor was forged, it doesn't get framed in this way. This is a person who is a blacksmith and historian immediately. Steve went to Vindolanda when he was taking the video of Lanercost Abbey that we saw earlier. And they were doing a lot of digging at both Vindolanda and Magna. They are doing some incredible research up there. It's, every other month something new and cool is coming out. And it's a gorgeous sculpture. They think it was either potentially carved locally, either by a mason working at Vindolanda, or perhaps from a sculptor from a regional carving workshop. Maybe near County Durham, there was a Roman fort. It's really cool. And we're going to stick with the Romans and go from sculptures to board games. An excavated Roman board game has been revived through 3D printing. Again, Vindolanda. They have found a game called Little Brigands or Soldiers. This was found between a bathhouse drain and a workshop wall in 2019. It's currently on display in Toronto, but before the game was sent to Canada, the Roman fort asked Newcastle University experts to help create a modern version of the game. It was found outside the fort and had been reused as a flagstone. We're not sure what the rules of the game were, but it's known as an ancient Roman strategy game for 2 players, similar to modern drafts. It's thought that players used their soldiers to trap enemy pieces, with the ultimate goal being immobilizing the opponent and capturing their king piece. So what they've done is the board consists of 5 separate stone pieces joined together to form a complete game. They scanned each individual piece and then printed them using polylactic acid plastic. Polylactic acid plastic? That's a hard thing to say. And then once it was made, they handed it over to the Vindolanda Charitable Trust as part of a public engagement program at the Roman Army Museum. So they've been using this game, and one of the people who's involved in using this, one of the team leaders, has said that the lack of strict rules has made it a great tool for SEND groups and for those with dementia. She said, quote, "You're constantly negotiating with the other person you're playing with. So if you forget the rules, it doesn't really matter." How cool is that? But wait, there's more Rome. Hold on to your butts. Man finds a rare Roman treasures in a field. A metal detectorist, once again, has found a Roman hoard of bronze objects hidden for nearly 2,000 years. They were found in the Chilterns, Buckinghamshire. And what they've got here, 2 enamel mounts, a glass gaming counter, a bone die, and several other bronze items. Most importantly, pieces of an ornate bronze rattle. That's so cool. And it's been donated to Discover Bucks Museum in Church Street, Aylesbury. The head of the Portable Antiquities and Treasure at the British Museum said, quote, "The donation is a great example of metal detecting and archaeological and museum communities working together to achieve a fantastic result." The rattle apparently has all of its pieces, including the peas that went inside, although it is very fragile. Rattles were used in Roman religious ceremonies, but few have ever been found in Britain, probably because they were used so much they broke. A private donor has come forward to pay for the cost of the conservation work. This is a time-consuming and expensive process. Now, here's the thing. If you've got dinosaur buying money, right, I hope you also have got conserving Roman rattle money. That's what I also hope. The museum said that without this funding, the objects would deteriorate, especially the fragile pieces and the enamelled surface of the mounts. The hoard is going on display as part of the museum's Festival of Archaeology event. It's cool. The Roman rattle, I love the kind of hand at the bottom. Love it. Scientists have found sticky goo. Yay. It's way to sell it inside a 2,500-year-old jar. That now 70 years on, they know what the goo is. Delightful. In 1954, they found this 2,500-year-old underground shrine in Italy. They found 8 bronze pots filled with a mysterious orange-brown sticky residue. I bet someone licked it. I bet someone licked it. And if they licked it, I bet they probably have a good idea of what this is. And but they were like, I can't tell people I know what it is because then I've got to admit that I've licked the history. Like, we finally discovered what the sticky goo is. And there's some guy being like, yes, finally discovered. Definitely didn't lick that when I found it. Likely it's a form of honeycomb, because here's the thing, if someone had licked that, they would know immediately what it was, but they could never admit it. So they've used a variety of marine techniques to analyze the contents, with all results pointing to this sweet golden colour liquid coming from honeys. The shrine is located roughly 40 miles south of Pompeii. And between the 50s and 80s, 1950s and 1980s, several teams of researchers conducted various experiments on the contents of one of the jars. One of them licked it. There's not a doubt in my mind that someone licked that. They initially suspected the pots contained honey, but their testing suggested otherwise. Maybe no one did lick it. They eventually concluded the jars held animal or vegetable fat that had been contaminated by pollen and insect parts. The application of multiple analytic techniques was key to the success of this study. Lick it. They did mass spectrometry, wow, I know the word, but it's not coming out of my mouth. Spectroscopic. You know what I mean? Spectroscopic. You only say a word so many times, you're like, is that how that word actually sounds? Like, I get that with the word plum. I say plum enough times, and I'm like, is that actually a word anymore? Anyway, carrying on. They revealed a comprehensive picture of the residue's molecular construction. And no, molecular composition. Whew, it's getting late. They could therefore distinguish between contaminants, degradation products, and original biomarkers. They found it contained a mix of acid and degraded sugars. They found glucose and fructose, the primary sugars found in honey. The smoking gun for honey was finding the sugars right in the heart of the residue. They also found the presence of royal jelly, a milky protein secreted by honeybees, as well as peptides from the relative of a parasitic mite that feeds on honeybees' larvae. It's suspected that these jars were initially topped with cork seals. Over time, those seals disintegrated, allowing microbes and oxygen to infiltrate the jars. And then bacteria ate most of the sugar, leaving only an acidic, waxy substance for research to find centuries later. The residue probably... So one of the researchers says the residue probably tastes like, quote, washed honeycomb, but slightly more acidic. This is been told to life scientist Christina Kilgrove, although she does say, I didn't taste it myself. I think the lady doth protest too much. Ancient Greeks did think of honey as a superfood. It is great. They put it in food, medicine, cosmetics, and rituals. It's possible, as this is found in the Shrine of Pastraeum, that it's also an offering to a deity as well. There are complex chemical ecosystems. Studying them reveals how substances change over time, open the door for future work on ancient microbial activity and its possible applications. So by a show of hands, just give me a little hands up in the chat. Who thinks they licked it? Just let's see. Who thinks they licked it? Give me a little one of these in the comments. I think there was definitely someone licked that. From honey, from tongue to toes. Shoes, anyone? Everyone's put their hands up. I think though, one of those things is that the accusation is the confession. What we're all saying here by putting our hands up is we would lick it. That's what's happened there. Venomous Care Bear, you did say to leave the licking to the experts. Well, I did. And she'd be an expert. They have found Esparta grass sandals that show Iron Age miners have used the same footwear for 400 years. Ancient miners in southwestern Spain wore sandals made from Esparta grass for more than 400 years. They have found 8 sandal soles from the ancient settlement of Urium, which is in modern Rio Tinto. And this shows that the same style of footwear has been in use from the Iron Age through the Roman period with very few changes. The excavations also found ropes, baskets, other objects made from plant fibers, which gives archaeologists this look into daily life at one of ancient Hispania's biggest mining centers. It's incredible because plant fiber tools, obviously, considering what they're made of, rarely survive. So every item adds a new detail about how people lived and worked. This is the Esparta grass is a tough plant that grows across southwestern Iberia, and it's long been used for rope, baskets, and other everyday goods. When they studied the sandals, it showed that skilled workers planned each pair with care. Thick cords form parts of the sole that carry the most weight, with finer cords being used for straps and other joining sections. Most of these soles show heavy wear around the heel and the front of the foot, and nearly all had lost the cords that once held them in place. It's thought that the sandals were thrown away after they were worn out and could no longer be fixed. So this points to simple work footwear instead of costly personal items. This is also showing how important plant fibers were in everyday life, from sandals, ropes, baskets, all are coming from the same raw material. And this paints a really clear picture of the people who kept these mines running for more than 2,000 years and their reliance on this particular crop, I suppose. Very interesting. Colorado crafter, so I can go out and mess my neighbour's lawn and make shoes. Cool beans. I'm never going to encouraging trespassing. Don't do that. Don't trespass on your neighbour's property. Subi. Yeah, I see. True. The headline shows why grammar and punctuation matters. Yeah. I think it was a different pair where some punctuation would have been helpful. Colorado Crafter, I was mostly joking. Good. Mary Reno, thank you so much for the jewels. It's very kind of you. Very kind of you. Wheezy said the miners could have benefited from steel toe boots. I wonder if there was something they could have potentially added a protective toe part to this. If they can thicken it up, then surely they could do that. If they can thicken up parts of the sole, why not thicken the toe if need be? The Colorado Crafter points out that Guerlain, the French company, started utilizing honey and royal jelly. Oh yeah, it's like it's a skincare. It's incredible in skincare. Okay, this is a no eating portion. I'm going to say something gross. I think it was 2018, maybe 2019. I developed, I think, an allergy or a reaction to my own sweat, and it was particularly present on my throat, in the kind of where your, let's put it clearly, where your phone fold is from you looking at your phone all the time. And it, I think, got infected, and I think it also may have had some kind of like fungal approach. It wasn't pleasant, but what I basically had was I had this strip across my neck, which was a weeping sore, and it was there for months, and I tried everything. Eczema cream, psoriasis cream. I tried antibiotic creams. I took all antibiotics. I did everything, and it would scab over, and it would bleed, and it would weep, and it was just so painful, so horrendous, and so unsightly, and just embarrassing and horrible, and all bad things. And eventually I got so distressed by it that I thought, I'm just going to try and think. So I got Manuka. I'm not recommending this. I'm not a medical expert. I got Manuka honey, just neat Manuka honey, and I put it on, and I put a bandage over it. And when I tell you, about 2 weeks, it went away, never came back. And I had tried everything. And look, maybe correlation isn't causation, but if it ever popped up again, I'd be going down to the health food store and buying Manuka honey to whack it on my skin. The other thing, I had psoriasis on my scalp. For Steve points out, sounds bacterial. I think there was definitely an element that I think it started off as a reaction and then it became a bacterial infection. I think that's absolutely the case. And the Manuka honey just sorted it right out and soothed it as well. But I was also really struggling with psoriasis on my head. And then I went to Prague for a friend's hen night. And even though I don't drink, we went to this beer spa. And part of it is you sit in like one of the kegs, and it's filled with like hops and the yeast and all of that kind of stuff. And then you lay on the straw and all of this. And even though I wasn't drinking, I tell you what, it really sorted out my scalp psoriasis. It really sorted it out. James points out that Manuka honey is great for many things. Fantastic for voice maintenance. Oh, absolutely. All of the actors and singers I know swear by Manuka, like a spoonful of Manuka honey. Absolutely swear by it. Jessie said that her sister had a similar issue with a weeping sore on her side. The only thing that cured it was Manuka honey. Isn't that interesting? Wheezy says, that's weird. I watched a C drama that I found unbelievable because the female lead was allergic to her own tears. I tell you something, when my psoriasis has really played up on my scalp and I've cried, the water plus the salt has meant that I've got psoriasis around my eyes. I think allergic is probably too strong of a term, but I think you can become sensitized to your own sweat. Certainly when my kids get really hot and sweaty, they get like what I call a sweat rash. It comes up on their feet and hands. So yeah, I mean, my kids react to their own sweat as well. I've got a friend who's she has to be careful going in like the shower because she can drink water, but she's allergic to water on her skin. Just water. The things people can be allergic to. We have got archaeologists have found, and this is the word, I say it 3 different ways: Byzantine, Byzantine. Pick whichever one you think is right, because I've heard all of them, and I don't know which one is right. So they have found a city that's either Byzantine, or Byzantine in Egypt's western desert. These are 4th century quarters that had residential and religious structures, including a basilica-style church in the Dakhla oasis. They found as well coins, pottery fragments, and tools. There was also separately 18 ancient tombs discovered at Marina El Alamein near Alexandria, which includes rock cut and limestone tombs, pottery, and a granite sarcophagus. Venomous Care Bear is going to ask your wife about Manuka honey when she gets home, skin conditioner especially. Well, let me know why Manuka honey would have worked. I used it completely out of desperation, and I think I maybe Dr. Googled it. I was beside myself, and I was like, well, maybe I'll try that. I've tried everything else. Subi, I'm going to try Manuka honey for various skin things. Thanks for the info. Well, let me know if it works for you too. I want to be abundantly clear that this could I had thrown everything at this thing on my neck. And it may well simply have been that after months and months, it just healed on its own. And it could be correlation, not causation. But I'll do it again. The Tourism and Antiquities Ministry has said that the first discovery reveals details about daily life, urban development, and economic activities when Egypt was part of the Byzantine, etc. empire. A basilica dating back to the 4th century stands at the settlement's head, overlooking its main streets. There are also remains of 2 watchtowers, and it is located in the western province of the New Valley, which is on UNESCO's tentative list. It's a step away from being added to the agency's World Heritage List. A heavily fortified structure with thick defensive walls and many houses consisting of reception halls, vaulted roofs were found in the area as well. Among them is something called the House of Thesis, a church deacon which dates to the second half of the 4th century. It's thought that this served as a house church before the construction of the city's basilica. They found a group of gold coins dating to the reign of the Roman Emperor Constantius II, and there's also a collection of about 200 pottery fragments, which would have been used as writing material. The fragments, known as ostraca, have inscriptions detailing commercial transactions, correspondence, and other details of daily life. They also found 4 gold pieces placed inside the mouth of some of the deceased, known as the golden tongue. This is a practice that had been associated with the funerary beliefs of the area. Archaeologists believe the site was the ancient Greco-Roman port city of Leucippus on the Mediterranean, built in the 2nd century, and it thrived then until the 4th century. Very exciting. More shiny coming up now. A pair of 2,000-year-old gold rings, one of which was engraved with Indian script, has been found in an Iron Age burial ground in Thailand. The engraving seems to reference a, quote, auspicious zodiac sign in Indian or Vedic astrology. Isn't it cool? The script suggests it reads, let me try this, Pusakarista, which translates to mean, quote, the one protected by Pusya. The Thai government's fine arts department says that this is one of the most auspicious zodiac signs in the Indian and Vedic astrology. The other gold ring they found was plain and did not have any writing. The initial hypothesis placed the ring's former owner within the Vaishya social class, or Varna, the 3rd highest of the 4 traditional social classes of Hindu India. These were commoners who worked for a living as merchants, farmers, and traders. There is The plan to conduct 3D scans of the site as a whole and then send charcoal samples to the US for scientific dating, apparently. Colorado Crafter, it's in incredible condition. It's beautiful. Chester Castle, an 800-year-old medieval bridge has been found underneath. This was a digital survey led by the University of Chester. They used laser scanner drones, detailed 3D models to record the castle above and below ground. And when they were exploring the underground passages beneath Chester Crown Court, they spotted a section of stonework that looked very different from the 18th century walls. High-res digital scans helped to pinpoint the wall's exact position, and then researchers matched the scans with old maps and historic plans. The evidence showed the wall formed part of a bridge crossing the deep defensive ditch around the castle's inner ward. It dates to about 1260 to 1280, and it closely matches remains at Beeston Castle in Cheshire, where visitors can still see part of a medieval crossing over a defensive ditch. That's what you're seeing in the picture over to this side. That is the Beeston Castle. This discovery formed part of Digital Dimensions, which is a joint project involving the University of Chester, Chester Constabulary, English Heritage, Historic England, SCCS North, and the Hartree National Centre for Digital Innovation. It creates detailed digital records of historic sites, helping to protect them from theft, vandalism, and damage. Researchers say that this bridge shows how digital surveys reach far beyond recording and buildings. By studying hidden spaces with modern technology, they have found part of Chester Castle's medieval past without disturbing the ground. This gives historians a clearer picture of how the fortress changed over the centuries. Brilliant. Love the use of new tech. It's so important. It's so vital. It's one of the things I've been saying a lot actually when I'm teaching my education groups, is I point out that, you know, we have the archives and the textual stuff, and texts get found all the time as well. Archaeological things, we find human remains, we find buildings. So our knowledge of the past is also being altered, as well as by text, by archaeological evidence. And then we have things like experimental archaeology that then contextualizes it, plus all of these scientific advancements that are allowing bits of history to be investigated in new and important ways. And that science, that tech, is constantly evolving. So the notion that history or understanding of history is settled fact, absolutely not, because we are constantly developing scientific techniques that's going to tweak that understanding and maybe in some cases completely blow it out of the water. History is not done by any means. It's not settled fact. It's not settled truth. History is temporarily true. It's the truth as far as we know it at the moment. It is the interpretation as accurate as we believe it can be, and that is going to be challenged in multiple cases. And I find that absolutely fascinating. It's one of the reasons why I think that history is so valuable to study. This is a bit sad, but also it's interesting. It's a sad tale, but it's also interesting that this has been done through these new texts. A new study has suggested the loss of medieval manuscripts, texts and manuscripts, might be far greater than once thought. It's now estimated that up to 60% of medieval literary works and more than 95% of manuscripts that once carried them have disappeared over time. Chivalric texts written from the 12th century onward have been explored, including things like the Song of Roland, along with many other stories where their names are now forgotten. The team combined computer models with data from about 2,000 medieval manuscripts copied across about 4 centuries. Before the printing press, everything had to be copied by hand, of course, and each new copy then caused small changes, whether through mistakes, edits, or deliberate additions. The copying and then these changes spread through families of manuscripts, and scholars then use those shared changes to build a family tree known as a stomata, which shows how surviving copies could be linked. These family trees, though, only tell part of the story because they leave out every manuscript, every work that vanished without leaving descendants. To fill that gap, the researchers built computer simulations based on ideas from complexity science. The models tested how different rates of copying and destruction affected survival rates of text over hundreds of years. The results match patterns already seen in real manuscript collections. They reproduce long debated feature of manuscript family trees, where some branches grow and many end quickly. A finding stood out. A text faces greatest risk during the first years after people wrote it. If only a few copies existed, the chances of complete loss rose sharply. A work needed enough early copies to survive fires, wars, decay, or simple neglect. Random events also shape what survived. Large disasters like the Black Death likely wiped out many of the manuscripts in a short time. Chance, along with human decisions about what books deserve copying, played a major part in shaping today's literary records. The researchers say the same approach reaches beyond medieval romances. Similar models could estimate losses in classical literature, legal records, scientific writings, and religious texts. This is combining historical evidence with computer simulation, and the study therefore offers a clear picture of how written culture changed through time, but also why so much of humanity's literary past had vanished. Fascinating. I also got another, this is connected to the what's gone on underneath Chester Crown Court. They have uncovered an 800-year-old section of a medieval castle wall hidden beneath Chester Crown Court. So this is a further article. I should have connected this to I meant to put these slides side by side because there's another article on it. This, though, points out that Dr. Stuart Ainsworth used his smartphone light to identify an abrupt change in masonry. The wall, we're told, is nearly 3 meters high, and it's thought to be part of a bridge, as we just look. So if you want to see another article, there is one there. I should have put those two articles together, but I think I rearranged my slideshow in a way that didn't make lots of sense, unfortunately, in that way. A rare medieval coin has been identified in Norway. Another metal detectorist at work. Everybody, for your birthday / Christmas, ask for a metal detector. This is a 900 silver coin linked to Magnus Barefoot, who ruled Norway from AD 1093 to 1103. Only about 100 coins minted by this ruler have ever been discovered. This was found in a field in southwest Norway. It's the first of its type to be unearthed in the country. The coin's outer edge had been folded around a copper plate, and a chain or loop might have been attached to 2 rounded notches on the end, so it might have been worn as jewellery for many years. X-ray of the coin revealed a griffin underneath the copper plate, while the visible side bears a cross-over-cross motif. 2-sided coins with a combination of a griffin and cross-over-cross designs are only known from 4 copies. 3 of these were found in the single hoard in Denmark, while the 4th was unearthed in the Faroe Islands. How cool is that? And now we are. Oh, Steve points out, also asked for a drone. You can see what 100 meters up tells you a lot from the landscape. Do you know what? I've got to say, Steve, the drone footage and the pictures you've sent me, thank you so much for those. I'm not sure how pleased my husband is, because I have now got my heart set on getting myself a drone. And I think, understandably, my husband has concerns, because it's yet another thing for me to learn to do that might take me out of away from home, possibly for long periods of time. That poor man, I'm always away. And our kids are a lot. They are intense. He's bless him. He's very good. Yes, so I might ask for a drone as well. Why not? This is very shiny. This is very shiny and I like it. Oh, Venomous says, also check your local laws for buying a drone. We live in a no-fly zone. What happened when I... Oh, do you know what? I probably live under a flight path. I'm pretty sure I've seen drones faffing about near me, though. I'll investigate. This sold for £5,588. It's an amber pendant that's turned out to be a rare Tudor-era portrait of Elizabeth I, and now it's going to auction for £100,000. This is gorgeous. Oh, Steve said that London is very much a no-fly area, unfortunately, for security reasons. That's fair enough, I suppose. I mean, not that I'd necessarily want to chuck a drone up in London. I probably would. That's the thing. I'd take it for when I'm going out and about, staying in, B&Bs and leaving my husband home with the kids. he's texting me. I can see the 3 dots. God bless him. So this is thought to have been made by a master craftsman in around 1600, possibly as a commission. Oh, he's given me my Mr. Dr. Cat's just done the most dad pun joke I've ever heard in my life. You'll be droning on about it a lot, but it could really elevate things. Help. Send help. Send help. James points out it's really beautiful. I'm totally obsessed with it. All things Tudor. This is gorgeous. So there's a parrot on the back, and it's this heart-shaped object. It was listed as an Elizabethan-style amber and enamel pendant, suggesting that it was originally crafted in the late 19th century. However, now it's dated back to 1600. A cameo portrait of the Queen. He said, you won't be able to fly here, but you might be able to fly areas away from London. So so thank you, darling. I'll book the hotels. I'll have some nice weekends at home with the boys. Off I go. Colorado crafted what I did in a museum. It's another great question. So it's set into a heart-shaped piece of yellow amber. The cameo portrait is carved into a gemstone they think is white amber. The yellow amber seems to have been cut to magnify Elizabeth's likeness. The parrot would have symbolized her virginity. It's gold-mounted amber pendant, a heart-shaped profile, echoing her insistence that she was only married to the Kingdom of England. The portrait is based on the famous print by Crispin de Paz the Elder, which in turn was after a painted miniature of the Queen by Isaac Oliver. It's unknown who commissioned the pendant, but the Queen may have done so herself. It ended up in the possession of John Malcolm, a 19th century collector. He then loaned the pendant to the Burlington Fine Arts Club, who exhibited in London. It was then passed down by Malcolm's descendants before it landed on the auction block in November. I don't know if we know who's bought it or who's going to buy it. The Sotheby's says in the listing, the newly reassessed pendant preserves this image in a novel fashion. Has this gone on sale already? I don't know when this is going. I don't know when this is going on sale again. Whether it's going to meet its reserve, so we don't know. It could go into a museum if a museum buys it. It's gorgeous. Miriam Rosie said parrots are a symbol of virginity. That's also news to me. I haven't really seen Elizabeth with parrots very often. I will have to explore that one. I'm assuming they're correct. Oh, Steve says it says the 1st of July in the article. I haven't seen an update on this. If anybody finds out if this auction did take place and if this sold at the start of last month, please let us know. I couldn't find it. Okay, let us know. We have got a 400-year-old intact pot. So University of Florida students found this in the soil and they managed to lift it out completely intact. It's thought that it was made by the indigenous Patano Timucua tribe, and it's compact enough to sit in one palm. The maker formed a narrow crease along the frame rim and smoothed the grey surface without adding decoration. What it once contained, why it was used and why it was left underground, might never be known. Usually these items are found broken and discarded. This is a rare survivor. It came during a field course. Each Friday during spring semester, University of Florida students travelled to Mission San Francisco de Botano in northwest Gainesville to learn the essential techniques of archaeological excavation. And this is what they dug out. At its height, this village, we think, likely held several hundred Patano residents and only one European, the mission friar. That population balance is reflected in the archaeological record. Most of the more than 7,000 artifacts recovered since 2006 are fragments of Native American pottery. Other discoveries include glass beads, stone tools, nails, and animal bones from the meals that contain turtle, freshwater fish, turkey, and other foods. Although the intact vessel offers few direct clues about its original purpose, the place where it's found connects it to a larger history, because it came from inside a Spanish-made structure whose function remains uncertain, and that's going to require further excavation to identify. Its records show that a small group of soldiers were stationed at the mission after British attacks intensified in the early 1700s. So this structure might have served as barracks. This is an interpretation that's supported by a rear sight of a gun and a musket side plate that's been discovered nearby. Cooking vessels often retain layers of burned food and charcoal. This pot has no such residue. So this suggests that it wasn't put over flames. However, it might still have played a part during meals, as faint scorch marks could have formed while the vessel was being fired and hardened, or when someone placed it beside a fire to warm up an individual serving of food. After recovering this small vessel, they also found fragments from a much larger pot with markedly different characteristics. A rough exterior, unusual material, and doesn't match known local pottery traditions. It's thought that this vessel might have reached the mission through trade with communities in St. Augustine or present-day Jacksonville. Another possibility is that a newcomer brought it into the village and thus brought in different pottery traditions. These contrasting objects show how people, materials, and ideas moved to the settlement and became preserved in the soil. It shows both the persistence and the change of traditions over time. I think that's really, really cool. We've got some shipwreck stuff. Shiny, shiny gold coins. If Mr. Dr. Cat is listening, I wonder if he might get me a little can of fizzy cold drink. For I'm feeling parched, and I'd much appreciate it. So this is a collection of treasure, massive collection of treasure, lost in a shipwreck, has been uncovered by, you guessed it, a metal detectorist. This one dates back to 1583. when a valuable cargo of grain was sent to Spain by a ship, and then a violent storm meant both the ship and the payment were lost at sea. Peter Hughes, who's now 69, has spent 21 years uncovering hundreds of coins and other items with his metal detector after storms blew away the sand, concealing them on Margam Beach in Neath, Port Talbot. He first struck gold in 1996, and he called it, understandably, incredible. He lifted the coin from the sand and felt the sand fall off the coin, and it glowed like the sun in my hand, he said. I mean, imagine you go out metal detectoring and you pull out one of these. I would probably need a change of trousers. I'll be honest. I'd be so excited I might wet myself. This is so cool. So the artifacts include about 870 gold and silver coins, personal belongings, as well as cooking, eating, and drinking utensils. It's thought that about only a quarter of the money that was aboard this ship in 1583 has been discovered. He said that parts of the Caribbean came to mind when he looked at it. This treasure has now gone on display at the National Waterfront Museum in Swansea. If anybody's got a chance to go and see that, do let us know how it looks. This is really cool. What an amazing collection of finds. Brian Valco says, have you ever seen wrecks from the Spanish Armada? No, I haven't. But I would like to. Where are they displayed? Where can one find that? If it's underwater, that's not going to happen, unfortunately, because I'm never, ever going scuba diving or, heaven forfend, even worse, getting in a submarine. Absolutely not. The things that I will never do. Space, no thank you. Potholing, never. Bungee jumping and parachuting, never, ever, ever. Submarine, no. Scuba diving, no. Land. I'm a land-based creature. Land-based. That's what I'll be doing. Thank you. This one's cool. An archival discovery became a treasure map leading a diver to a 17th century shipwreck containing coins and gold jewellery. Oh, here he is, and he's got a drink for me. Oh, you are a star. You're an officer and a gentleman. Thank you, darling. Thank you. You may leave. Close the door. Go on now. Making the place look untidy. Rue has questioned potholing. Potholing? Do you know what? If you're a sensitive disposition, don't Google this. But if you're not, just search the Nutty Putty Cave. Particularly the Nutty Putty Cave, tragedy, disaster, whatever you want to search. This is why nightmare fuel, absolute nightmare fuel. So no, thank you. James, not even a yellow submarine, never, wouldn't do it. No, thank you. Colorado Crafter did scuba lessons in the 90s, not what it's cracked up to be. Look, when I have spoken to people who dove the Mary Rose and the Solent, I have nothing but respect. You would never catch me. I love archaeology. You'd never catch me as a salvage diver. Never. Oh yes, Steve, it's spelunking in the US. Why would you ever? I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. Oh, in New Zealand they call it caving. I call it a bad idea. In my house, we call that an A&E choice. You're lucky if you get to A&E. Absolutely not. Never. Oh, the other thing is no motorcycles. No motorcycles. I love that word spelunking too. It's a great word. Yeah, that's the thing, Subi. Potholes are also holes in the road here. We also call those potholes. But if you go potholing, then you probably need to be sectioned for your own health, I fear. Oh, no thanks. Absolutely not. Okay. So this is the British ship, the Phoenix, that was helmed by William Wildey. It sank off the coast of Cornwall in 1680, taking down a load of precious cargo with it. Scuba diver and author Todd Stevens stumbled upon a clue to the wreck's final resting place where he looked at an old map in the archives of the National Museum in Greenwich. CocoCreates. The best thing about cave is you don't have to do it. Do you know what? That should be on a t-shirt. Same with climbing Everest. The best thing about climbing Everest is you don't have to do it. It's totally optional. Oh, that's the worst. Rue, that's the worst. The ones who go cave diving. I think I have that thing, submechanophobia or whatever it's called. There's those like super deep, unsettling pools. And people go and free dive into them, and it makes me feel violently ill. Violently ill. Oh gosh, it makes me feel squicky. No. So, National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, and he read the words "Captain Wildly Lost" written over an area west of the island of Samson. This led him to go and check it out for himself. So, his investigation took him to somewhere called the Western Rocks. This is a treacherous part of the Isles known for its history of wrecks. He gets into his scuba gear and starts exploring depths of 15 to 130 feet below the surface, and he identified the remnants of the ship. Well done. You're a madman. Its unusual ballast, made from a broken piece of cannon, confirmed it as a match for the Phoenix. Ooh. He then starts bringing up numerous artifacts to the surface, like coins, jewelry, sword fragments, navigational instruments, and personal items likely belonging to the captain and crew. These have then been since donated to the local Isles of Scilly Museum, dedicated to showcasing the archipelago's natural, archaeological, and maritime history. He said it's hard to believe he's been sitting on the seabed for 350 years. This is the museum curator, Xavier Duffy. This donation ensures the material can now be shared with the public and preserved for future generations as part of the island's heritage. And look, what he's found is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this thing, this photograph off to the far side, this piece of jewelry, it's beautiful. It's absolutely. I'm so glad that he wanted to go scuba diving. I would never take that away from him. I would just never go. BBC News points out that poor visibility, crowded fishing channels, and hidden rocks have contributed to the area's dangerous history. The coast of the Scilly Isles and West Cornwall have probably proved more lethal than any comparable area in the world. Good. It's a great comment there. Steve said, I have to congratulate him for sharing the finds with the public. Absolutely. Absolutely. This I put this in new news, but it probably could also be in Ding Dong. So I wasn't sure where to put it, but I put it here for now. Library cards and faux copies. A US man has been sentenced in the elaborate theft of 17th century Chinese literature. Like, obviously, he's a very bad man, but there's a level of kind of clever cat burglar about him that didn't feel quite ding-dongy for me. So a California man has been sentenced after stealing an ancient Chinese manuscript in an elaborate plot that included faux names on library cards and a host of equipment that prosecutors say he used to create forged copies. So it's very like Catch Me If You Can, which didn't feel ding-dongy for me. Jeffrey Ying, 39, pled guilty to the theft of major artwork and was sentenced to time served, accounting for approximately 1 month in jail. That's not long, really. So the UCLA Library, which has an expansive collection of rare books and artwork, uncovered the plot after several recently returned pieces were found to be fakes. An investigation found the documents were checked out using aliases that were later found to be Ying's. Surveillance footage showed that the missing documents were checked out by the same person. Between December 2024 and July 2025, Ying is accused of stealing approximately $216,000 or £161,300 worth of rare and ancient Chinese manuscripts from UCLA. This included valuable Chinese pieces dated to 1393 and another published in 1597. The document, though, doesn't outline what happened with the pieces, nor does it charge Ying with the theft. He pled guilty to one count of stealing 17th century manuscript dating from China's Qing dynasty. When he was arrested in August of 2025, authorities found a fraudulent California identification in the name of Austin Chen, along with 2 library cards in the name Austin Chen and Jason Wang. Authorities noted that until recently, the university had allowed public to apply for a library card, which could give access to the rare materials online without having to show any form of government-issued identification. Oh, hang on. Subi, why did they let this out of the library? I see, it reads like they have let them out of the library. I'm not sure if that's what they mean by checked out. I'm not sure if he was allowed to take them home or if he checked them out, took them to a reading room desk, and then had the things that he was going to, like the forgeries, to replace them with, and did the switcheroo in the room. According to Sotheby's website, the Elizabeth I amber pendant did sell for 930,176 Great British pounds. Wow. Steve said, I hope it's the museum. We won't see it again. My fear is that a museum hasn't purchased it, because if they had, we would have heard about them fundraising for it, and possibly also the auction being paused. If it goes to auction, that's bad news bears, I fear. Matthew Flinders stimulated to reveal a hidden side to the man who circumnavigated Australia. So 1800, aboard the HMS Reliance, navigator Matthew Flinders penned a letter to his good friend, naval surgeon and explorer George Bass. It starts innocuously: my dear friend, I now begin to suspect that you are gone on to England. A lot of dry talk of charting, but then it gets a bit saucy. Quote, there was a time when I was so completely wrapped up in you that no conversation but yours could give me any degree of pleasure. Your footsteps on the quarterdeck over my head took me from my book and brought me upon deck to walk with you, often, I fear, to your great annoyance. No wonder that Bass's wife Elizabeth, after reading these words, wrote that this letter is written by a man that bears a bad character. No one has seen this letter, but I could tell you many things that made me dislike him. Rest assured, he is no friend of yours. Yet Flinders appeared to be a close friend to many, and a softer, perhaps more unexpected side of the first European man to circumnavigate Australia emerges from his letters that were first published in 2002. It appears that he was not just a man extremely good at sailing and charting, but someone who was a fan of writing, crushing on friends far and wide. He was 21 when he met the 24-year-old Bass on the HMS Reliance while sailing for Port Jackson in 1795. He was drawn to the handsome Bass. When the ship arrived, they were getting on so well, they decided to do a cartographical examination of the east coast of New South Wales together. So Flinders, Bass, and a servant named William Martin set off in a small boat named Tom Thumb. It starts out disastrously from Shark's Bay. They realise they put the fresh water into wine canisters and it's now undrinkable. Then there's another steamy section of the journal where he describes Bass having to take off all his clothes and going ashore to try and save their waterlogged food. It seems that Matthew Flinders took friendship extremely seriously. historian Simmons, the historian. Oh, hang on, it's gone small again. Oh, has said that we live in an age where friendship is quite culturally devalued. It's seen as a stepping stone on the way to the real deal, to marriage, family, to children. The 18th century was not that world. And it's not like Flinders' ardour was directed only towards Bass. In the same letter he penned to Bath in 1801, he also brought up his old friend, the botanist James Wiles, saying, quote, "And yet it is not clear to me that I love you entirely. At least my affection for Wiles reaches further into my heart. I would take him into the same skin with me." What a way to express your love and affection for somebody. I would take him into the same skin with me. While we probably will never know the true nature of these naval men's relationship, I mean, I think we potentially have a fairly good idea. We know that Flinders was a prolific writer. He was, and that Bass was not the only one who received effusive letters. Flinders married Anne Chappell in 1801, but for many years before and after, their relationship played out entirely in letters. He wrote to her in 1801, quote, "I am just as awkward without thee as one half of a pair of scissors without its fellow." He also developed feelings for a young French woman in 1804 called Delphine. He wrote in his diary that she was, quote, "an extraordinary lovely young lady, possessing a strength of mind, a resolution, and a degree of penetration which few men can boast of." It seems that he can't really describe any relationship without putting it into extremely romantic terms. Or maybe let's not assume that simply because some are written to men and some are written to women that some are platonic and some are also romantic. Let's potentially assume that it may be that he liked everybody, potentially sexually, and that these letters that seem romantically effusive were in fact romantically effusive. He would certainly not be the first nor be the last person to just enjoy sexuality and to fall in love with people regardless of what genitalia they happen to have. In 1814, Flinders was 40 and he published his magnum opus, his maps and a book that's titled, and this is the length of the title is the paragraph you can see by the miniature portrait on the pendant. There's definitely a kind of erotic charge. Wheezy Squeeze book. Nothing human is alien to me. Exactly. And I think that love and desire and the ease with which the blurring that the loves can develop, you know, platonic, sexual, something deeper and more like lust, love, friendship, like those lines can blur very easily, I think, and they can merge into one another and come out of each other and all of the rest. And this is something that is very much just the human condition, I think. Snudpuckle said it's cool as long as they're consenting adults, and they all seem to be adults. Whether or not his feelings were reciprocated by everybody he threw them out towards. I mean, one of them certainly was. She did marry him, so potentially it seems like she was keen in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, the Monarch of the Glen sister painting has sold for £5.9 million. Venomous. I saw it. I heard it when I said it. I heard it when I said it. I'll stand by it. Do you know what? I stand by it. We will take it as it comes. There we go. Done it again. So this is sold for auction in London. It's seen in Braemere by Queen Victoria's favourite artist, Sir Edwin Landseer. It fetched 5 times the previous record for one of his works. It's a 12-point stag on a Scottish Highland peak, which was commissioned by the railway magnate Edward Betts, and it's gone through various private collections. Sotheby's had thought it would sell for up to £4 million. Monarch of the Glen hangs in the National Galleries of Scotland. It's one of the most recognised and reproduced paintings in British art. Seen in Braemere is much larger, though, almost 9 feet. Dear Lord, that's a big boy. It last appeared at auction in 1994. Then it sold for £790,000 and £790,500. This time it's fetched over nearly £6 million. Gascoigne said, quote, this is Julian Gascoigne, Senior Director of Sotheby's Painting Department, where the monarch shows the stag in the brilliance of youth, this is a darker, more epic version, majestic, charged with tension, and iconic. It's a vision of the Highlands. Edward Betts originally paid £800 for the work, but a banking crisis forced him to sell it along with the rest of his collection in 1869. It's since been exhibited in public galleries on a number of occasions. Sticking with paintings, a valuable Spanish painting left on the street was salvaged by a man who liked its frames. Andres Hurtado found a work by Joaquin Sorolla after its owners mislaid it before responding to the theft alert. It's a very small, very valuable picture that vanished over the weekend. It's odd. It's been sold after a man told police he'd mistaken the painting for junk when he found it on a Seville street, but rescued it because he liked the frame. He, at age 57, didn't know when he happened across the work last Saturday that it was a painting by Sorolla, a late 19th, early 20th century Spanish artist. He didn't know that it belonged to the Seville family who'd owned it for many years, who were in the habit of taking it on holiday with them. What? Sorry? They intended to pack the picture in the boot of their car as they headed to the beach, but accidentally left it leaning against a wall and driven off. I'm sorry. Are we taking priceless art with us? I mean, when I next go to Bognor, should I have a Picasso in the boot? What are we doing here? By the time they realised what had happened, the painting was gone. They put up posters appealing for information to help them locate a painting of great sentimental value. Hurtado lives 325 miles away. He'd found the painting while in Seville with his family for the weekend and assumed someone had thrown it out. We picked it up because of the frame, and then they took it back to Murcia and they researched the picture using AI. The AI came out with some crazy prices, so I looked online and called an auction house in Madrid. I sent them pictures and they came back to me very quickly saying it was an original Sorolla. The painting, valued at €150,000, was his time with it was then short-lived. When he heard news of it being stolen, he rang the police, told them the news wasn't true. I hadn't stolen it. I just picked it up in the street. The family in Seville have promised Hurtado a small present by way of thanks. They told me there was a lot of traffic on Saturday and that all the other cars were beeping at them. They got anxious and left the painting leaning against the wall. What? Yeah, Weezy, we're taking on a holiday apparently. Marianne's asking, does a painting need a vacation? What is going on here? This is not normal. People aren't doing this. Surely. Steve says he's taking an original copy of the 1920 Stig report as a reference. Okay, I get that. But if you had a casual, water lilies, original water lilies in your house, Munches the Scream, would you be like, do you know what? taking a trip up to Vinderlander, best pack the screen to go with me. Maybe they were trying to prevent its theft. I fear, though, if that's the plan, putting it in the boot of your car but forgetting it on the wall sort of neutralizes that as an option. Buy a safe. Buy an art safe. If you've got £150,000 worth of artwork, buy a safe. Coco, that's a great question. Are we too poor to understand the taking your painting on holiday thing? Do you think... Is that what, do you know what? Is that what the Dukes of Westminster are doing? I mean, it's a very kind of medieval, peripatetic kingship. Pack up your tapestries and travel. But they're also taking their 4-post to bed with them at that point, aren't they? I think it's weird. Maybe they didn't trust the housekeeper, but apparently they did trust the wall outside the house on the street. Egads. No. A vanishingly rare copy of the US Declaration of Independence has been found by a volunteer in the UK archives. This is one of 11 surviving copies of the Exeter printing. Michael Skur, a volunteer at the National Archives at Kew West London, was had just a boring old Thursday morning when he sat down in late May to catalogue a collection of documents from the British National Collection. He opened a volume of 18th century Royal Naval correspondence, and then he saw words he recognised. He had found a vanishingly rare copy of an early printing of the US Declaration of Independence, just weeks before the 250th anniversary of his signing. He turned to his supervisor and said, I think you should come over and have a look at this. It's the Exeter printing of the Declaration, one of just 11 copies known to survive, and the only one known outside of the US. According to Graham Moore, who's a record specialist at the National Archives, this is the amazingly complete story of how it came to be in the possession of the Royal Navy and what that says about how the news of the Declaration spread as a new nation sought to assert its autonomy. It was found among a collection of papers taken from an American privateer vessel called the Dalton. That was captured by a British warship off the coast of Spain in December 1776. Although significant papers were passed on to the Admiralty's court, including the Privately Owned Ships Commission, personally signed by the Continental Congress President, John Hancock, to attack British vessels on behalf of the fledgling US, the Declaration was not. Instead, it would be recorded only as another document and forgotten for more than 2 centuries in the Naval Archives. It was printed next to New Hampshire between the 16th and 19th of July. The time taken for the news to spread of the bold declaration first signed in Philadelphia on the 4th of July. Dalton did not dock in Exeter. It was likely that Eliza Johnson, the ship's captain, had bought a copy of the Declaration in nearby Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where the ship briefly stopped to pick up more crew. Johnson was a committed American. After his capture, he declared to a court in Plymouth, UK, that he was a citizen of the United States of America, still considered a treasonous statement by the Crown. American privateership had been commissioned by Congress to attack, seize, and take ships and other vessels belonging to the inhabitants of Great Britain. Thanks to other documents in the National Collection and elsewhere, we know what happened next. There is also a published diary of one of the sailors, Charles Herbert, that is available online. The crew of 120 men, English, Irish, Scottish, French, and Danish sailors, as well as those declaring themselves American citizens, including one, Daniel Cottle, who is described in the muster as being a black man. This is not uncommon in North America, said Moore. It's likely by his role in the privateering ship that he is a free black man in 1776. We do see free black people fighting on both sides of the Revolution. With the rest of the crew, Cottle was transferred to a guard ship and eventually taken to England, where he was held in the Old Mill prison in Plymouth. That's when we lose his story. It's possible with more research we'll be able to follow him a bit further. It's likely that he came from Newburyport, Massachusetts, where the majority of Dalton's crew came from. So there's definitely more to his story there, and they'd love to uncover it if they can. As well as the documentary importance, it's the story that makes this copy so important. Not only is there only 11 known in the world, it also has this provenance. You can trace it from the print shop in Exeter, New Hampshire, to a privateer at sea, to its capture, to becoming part of the UK State Archives. And that kind of provenance is incredibly rare. CocoCreates, did they take the Declaration holiday too? Kind of. They took it to sea. Maybe a little bit. I got sent this one a lot as well. America's oldest John Doe. America's oldest John Doe is finally identified by DNA from bones on a Revolutionary War battlefield. Private John Pumphrey, a Maryland teenager who died in one of the American Revolution's last major battles, has finally been identified after 246 years. Pumphrey died on August 16, 1780, at the Battle of Camden, South Carolina, one of the Continental Army's most devastating defeats. He was with British General Charles Lord Cornwallis, routing Patriot forces under Major General Horatio Gates. Many of the 900 killed were left where they fell, abandoned to wild animals, scorching heat, and ruinous humidity. Archaeologists came to survey the area in 2020. And they came across human bones protruding from the ground. Eventually, 14 sets of remains were identified, 12 of them Continental soldiers. The others were determined to be connected to the British side and were reburied on the battlefield. The Richland County Coroner's Office had worked with Texas-based FHD Forensics on modern-day cases and asked for their help. And they called the case America's Oldest John Doe. The remains were dubbed Camden 9B because his were the second set of remains retrieved from the burial 9. They were examined and catalogued. Samples of 2 of the soldiers were sent to Estrella Forensics in California for DNA extraction and sequencing. One of those matches they found came from a maternal line was Russ Hudson. He was a retired federal agent in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and he offered to help them do archival research. A profile began to emerge of a young orphan from Maryland and Arundel County, dispossessed and thrown away in life. He was probably, when he was 13, he went to Baltimore and enlisted in the militia. Who knows what his story was, what he accomplished in order to become a member of the militia at such a young age. No birth record has been found, so it's unclear how old Pumphrey was when he went to war. He signed his enlistment papers with an X, but he was young enough that when he died, the growth plates around his knees had not yet fully closed. Work continues on the other sets of remains, Camden 11A. One thing is certain, Peacock is related to him. One of the things I do when I take on, this is the researcher, the DNA researcher. One of the things I do when I take on the case, I run my DNA against the remains, see if it's someone I'm related to, just on the wild chance it is. It's never happened before, but I am related to Camden 11A. So I'm very motivated to get him identified. So last month, Peacock was confident enough to research a name, to put a name to Camden 9B. Relatives wept at an emotional ceremony at the 19th century Benson Hammered House in Anne Arundel County. For Hudson, the retired federal agent, the story won't be over until the US government confirms the research and replaces his fifth great uncle's unknown gravestone. He said America owes it to John Pumphrey. He sacrificed himself along with some others. His eyes tearing up for the sake of this new nation. Apparently, Dan Snowden did the documentary called Commemorating the Fallen of the Battle of Camden 1780. So there we go. If you want to learn more, there is a documentary on it. This probably also could have been a ding dong, but it's here. So I'm going to put it here because thieves have stolen around 4 million in jewellery from a French museum. Not just any museum, though, the Lalique Museum. Lalique being the French luxury glassmaker. They broke into the museum at 5:30 a.m., went straight for the jewellery room. 20 pieces were stolen. Loss currently being assessed, but could amount to several million euros. The museum was closed for several days because of the burglary. The museum dedicated to the Art Nouveau, Art Deco jeweler and glassmaker René Lalique only opened in 2011. This, of course, there was another dramatic daytime jewel heist at the Louvre Museum that we know of. Thieves made off with $102 million worth of jewellery from the Louvre in a raid lasting less than 8 minutes. So there's something going on there that's upsetting. Mr. Dr. Katz just put a message in about people taking their artwork on holiday. Can you imagine what their final idiot check of the hotel room must be like? That's what we do. Whenever we're leaving a hotel room, we're like, right, idiot check everything. Just look everywhere, under the bed, etc. Oh dear, we've almost left a rodent under the bed. Good job, I checked. The Renoir and the socks have fallen behind the sink. Can you imagine? So yes, if we find any more about this Lalique heist, I will update you when we know. Meanwhile, somewhat of a bun fight has broken out over witch marks in old English buildings. An author is arguing that these, daisy wheels, etc., are in fact the working marks of stonemasons rather than protective markings that are found around doorways and around fireplaces to protect against witches. Instead of being witch marks, they are being described as practical geometry being taught and tried out. The daisy wheels are practices for drawing on stone, learning how to use compasses with straight edges to do geometry. Okay. Ridiculing the identification as witches' marks, quote, anything on a stone building that looks like a design gets picked up as these damn things now. All right, chill out. There's absolutely no evidence they were ever used like that. Equally, though, if you're a stonemason putting up something that's going to be visible to people, why are you letting your apprentices doodlebug on it? 2024, English Heritage, whose charity that looks after historic sites, announced that research at Gainsborough Old Hall, Lincolnshire, had revealed a staggering array of carved ritual protection or apotrophic marks, sometimes called witches' marks, the most identified at any of their 400 sites. Such symbols have been identified in the stonework of some of the grandest barns, including the 14th century one at Bradford on Avon in Wiltshire. However, Alexander said there's no evidence these are witches' marks. What they're telling us is that when the barn wasn't needed for farm produce, it was either a schoolroom or a mason's training shop. There are a huge number of designs on the walls that vary enormously in skill. If you're drawing a circle with a pair of compasses, you get 3/4 of the way around. It's very difficult to make a nice clean line because your wrist is upside down. When you're doing it on paper, it's bad enough. When you're doing it on stone, it's even harder. People have to be trained. Okay. My question is, presumably that would be stonemasonry. You're drawing these as some kind of decorative motif. I would love for you to show me where the professional decorative motif is on stonework that uses these compass-like designs. Alexander's book is called Stonemason's Mark. It's been published by Routledge ahead of this week's International Medieval Congress in Leeds. She explores how the marks were used and what they reveal about the buildings of the people that built them. She points out there are things to ward off evil eye, but they're more a generic thing. These are parts of the mechanisms by which buildings are constructed. Marks that look like a capital W or an M are Mason ciphers. They can help you put things together in the right order if you're building something, or they can identify whose work it was. And you know what? I completely buy that there would need to be some kind of marking created to put bits and pieces together. However, I do have a question about whether or not, when the masons are carving that stone to piece things together, whether or not they would put those marks on a place that would be visible to the room. Maybe. English Heritage has said, Historic England said, we welcome your research that adds to our understanding of these marks. The more we learn about them, the richer our picture of these people who made them and use these places becomes. English Heritage said, we welcome debates such as this, which encourage fresh perspectives of the past and look forward to seeing where future research leads. Look, I don't know if they're witches' marks or if they are geometric practice or what they are. My question is, if they are the practice of stonemasons, these kind of daisies, these compass-made daisies, if this is some kind of stonemaker practice, what are they practicing for? And what is the finished product that relates to those things? Venomous Care Bear asks, have I ever assembled an IKEA shelf with the wrong side facing out? I mean, yes, I have. But it looks funny. And you can see the label and you try and take the label off, don't you? You don't leave the sticker on the shelf. You try and your best to take it off. So my question would be, if you do that, wouldn't you try and smooth out the stonework to hide? In the same way that if you draw something with pencil and then you go over it, you try and rub the pencil out. I don't know. These marks are everywhere. You do find these daisies everywhere. I've seen them at Hampton Court. I've seen them in Dover Castle. I've seen them in Shakespeare's birthplace. Like they're everywhere. And so, yeah, it being some kind of ubiquitous maker's mark or mason's mark, yes. However, they're also on wood. They also feature in wooden beams. So it's not just masons, it's also carpenters. Maybe they are a sign of something that you want to show off about. Maybe they are. But then if they're practice marks, and look, yeah, kids definitely draw on walls. They do. But they are also in places that aren't simply, I mean, there's no evidence, I believe, that Dover Castle was ever used as a place to teach stonemasons, apprentice stonemasons. I mean, it was a prison in the Napoleonic period, sure. I don't think there were stonemasons practicing their craft in the kitchens of Hampton Court Palace. So why are they there? Music says, fascinating. The mystery makes it more interesting to me. Me too. I think those questions and raising that question makes it much more interesting. I will say that it's I suppose it's the verbiage. It's that kind of, it's the shutting down of the debate that we're seeing here. Anything on a stone building that looks like these design gets picked up as these damn things now. There's absolutely no evidence they were ever used like that. Okay, but do we have to? But they could be, though, couldn't they? Because we do know that people are putting protective things in their buildings, because we find shoes in the walls that are doing just that. We do know that people are putting talismanic and protective items on and in their homes in the building process. That is happening. The city of Boston discovered one of the oldest known gravestones of a free Black American who shared the name with the Massachusetts capital. For hundreds of years, in Boston's Granary Burying Ground Cemetery, a simple headstone marked with the name Boston stood inconspicuously. Over time, it slumped onto its side, neglected and covered in dirt. It's estimated there are about 5,000 historic graves and 2,345 headstones in this cemetery. It's overshadowed by the resting places for sign of the Declaration of Independence, like Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Robert Treat Paine, as well as for Paul Revere and Crispus Attucks. Oh, Venomous Care Bear. I never understood how the shoe in the wall thing was supposed to work. So my understanding is that evil and demonic spirits, particularly ones that try to, I suppose, incubus or succubus you, will try to take on human form, and they will try to essentially steal your identity by wearing your shoes. So if you use discarded shoes that you don't wear, you can confuse them that way. And there's also some story that when you sleep, you should turn your shoes upside down, so the like mouth part of the shoe isn't facing upright, so that like a demon or a changeling can't hop into your shoes in some way. Is my understanding of how it's supposed to be protective. So restorers have recently started working on this cemetery, and this small headstone captured their attention. They noted that the lack of the surname likely meant the man buried there had been enslaved at some point. So they started looking for a way to identify him through research. Now they can tell the story of Boston, also known as Sebastian or Bastian, a formerly enslaved man who died free in 1729. Records and scholarship reveal that he married a woman named Jane Lake, who gave birth to their daughter, also named Jane, in around 1701. Samuel Sewall, a well-known Boston merchant and judge, noted in his diary that the infant was baptized in her father's arms on November 1701. Both Boston and the elder Jane were enslaved at the time. Boston, who was called Sebastian when enslaved, lived in the home of John Waite, a merchant, while Jane lived in the home of Deborah Thayer, a widow. The two homes were close to each other, but there's nothing that indicates that Jane and Sebastian were able to cohabit. Boston was freed sometime between 1702, when Waite died, and 1708, when a list of free Black people was published that included the name Boston. In addition to his name, Boston's gravestone is marked with a death's head, common iconography for the era. A 5-line epitaph translated to modern English reads, "Here lies the body of Boston, aged 70 years, deceased February 28, 1728. Boston's death year was engraved according to the Julian calendar, which New Year begins March 25. So by Gregorian calendar standards used today, he died in 1729. Miriam Rosie points out all Black gemstones have protection association. Yeah. I like wearing tourmaline. The horseshoe thing, yes, that, and there's loads of different connotations as to what that's supposed to mean as well. Venomous, this isn't one I've heard of. Turning your coat inside out to avoid being lured by will-o'-the-wisps. Not one I've heard, but sounds very similar. Garlic against vampires, yes, possibly. I think also things I hear about people who live or reside in Appalachia, look at the trees, don't look in the trees, don't whistle. If you hear something, call your name. No, you didn't. Close your curtains after dark, before it gets dark. All those sorts of things. Possibly. So we've got a couple more. We've got a couple more new newses to share. So we have got, while the heat wave has not done wonders for anybody's gardens, it has though done wonders for lost archaeological sites. This one's talking about grassland in Wales. They're also all over the shop in other places. So this is what Steve's hoping to see with the drone when you go on holiday this year. I would love to see it too. So it's happened at Hampton Court because they have spotted the spaces where the fountains used to be out the back of Hampton Court. In Wales, they've seen about 5% of the average rainfall for July after a series of back-to-back heat waves. These dry conditions have brought to light a series of archaeological remains. So there's Roman buildings and practice trenches from World War I, for example. They've also got marks in crops and grass, things that haven't been seen for 2 or 3 decades. This is so cool. Crop marks made by vegetation drawing on better nutrients and water supplies trapped in long-gone fortification ditches, leading to green growth that stands out. So this can, though, also disappear once the weather conditions change. So archaeologist Dr. Toby Driver has been racing against the heat to record and study the monuments. Monuments ranging from prehistoric long barrows to forts and Roman buildings, even to First World War practice trenches, as we said. Sometimes the crop marks are so clear they jump out as we orbit the aircraft around to photograph them, but some parts of Wales are now so dry, the crop marks can be faint and pretty hard to see. In Powys, crop marks of a rectangular Neolithic long barrow have been seen that date back about 5,000 years. There are dramatic patchworks of First World War practice trenches beneath a golf course, also seen at Conwy, and a previously unrecorded Iron Age or Romano-British double-ditch farmstead revealed in ripening crop marks south of Ceredigion. This is cool. Not the drought. We're getting some recommendations about podcasts on Appalachia. So got Old Gods of Appalachia, Absinthe Kiss, passing that one on. Something called Dixie After Dark, Ghost Stories. And yeah, Wheezy, an upside of the drought conditions in Great Britain. Yes, there are very few. There are very few upsides of the drought conditions. And I hope that we get some cooler weather very soon. I'm very concerned about people who don't have the capacity to cool their homes. I'm very worried about people, particularly if they've got pre-existing health conditions. This is incredibly dangerous and scary for them. I mean, the thought about a lot of people in my community, there's quite a few people that are pregnant or have very new babies or very young children, and I'm very concerned about the heat that can be existing in some of these flats, particularly like purpose-built flats, because they are built to be so insulated that it's almost impossible to cool them down. I know of people that are booking to stay nights in hotels with air conditioning because they're scared for their babies. You know, it's so stay as cool as you can. Our last new news. A book returned to a New South Wales library 150 years after being borrowed. My goodness. The Antiquities of Athens. Must be a stonking read. This was discovered in a tea chest bricked into a fireplace by a family renovating their home in Kiama on the state's south coast. Why would they? Okay. It's a little bit damaged, but it's still in good condition. There's an ownership stamp inside the front cover that also states the library's opening hours, borrowing restrictions, and crucially fines. The fines are at a rate of 3p a week for every week the book is overdue. So library staff estimate this book has racked up an overdue bill of $28,000 in accounting for inflation. Thankfully, though, this library no longer charges fines. It's no longer available for loan and is instead going to be added to the library's collection of significant items. Oh, that's really fun. This book is now the 506th item added to the Kiama Library collection. The bylaws inside the book give an amusing insight into the process of borrowing a book in 1872 when the laws were passed, including anyone intoxicated was not allowed to borrow a book. Imagine reading while inebriated. What kind of scandals might one get into? Anyone behaving in a disorderly manner would be fined at least 5 shillings per offence. Book loans were restricted to 1 volume per person, but exceptions could be made to increase that if a household had 6 members who could prove they could read. So this edition was published in 1858 and contains 70 black and white illustrations, including some pages that fold out to show larger diagrams. It's a small book with a bit of weather damage, but because the tea chest probably wasn't the best place to keep it. But people are still going to want to browse through it. So these are our new news pieces. So we're going to hop straight in. We've got 3 ding-dongs to discuss. Ding-dong number 1. I can scarcely believe it, except for the fact that people are trash, apparently. The Sycamore Gap tree let's try those words again. The Sycamore Gap tree sapling has been stolen from castle grounds months after planting. So this was the Sycamore Gap tree was the one that was chopped down illegally, criminally felled for no apparent reason back in 2023. Those responsible, Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, were found guilty and sentenced to more than 4 years in prison. Seeds were collected from the tree, and 49 saplings were successfully salvaged, planted across the country as signs of hope. One has been stolen from the picturesque grounds of a castle in Cumbria. It was planted there in April last year. The castle believe it was taken deliberately. Sounds like it. It hasn't just been pulled up recklessly. Somebody's thought about what they're doing. What were you thinking? The sapling had helped raise awareness for dementia and bereavement initiative led by the trust. It's really gross to have stolen this. Really gross. It's thought this theft took place between the 9th and the 16th of June, and they're appealing to anyone who visited the castle and its grounds to come forward with information. So, quote, this tree symbolised resilience and renewal, and its loss will be deeply felt. We're working with Cumbria Police to ask anyone with information to come forward. While this is a setback, it does not undermine the spirit the tree represents. Acts of care, restoration, and community support remains far stronger. We urge those involved to do the right thing, return the sapling, or come forward. The tree belongs to everybody. Wheezy Squeeze Box, seemingly no cameras. Seemingly no cameras. And one thinks that perhaps the people responsible would have noticed or somehow known that. Horrendous. A man has been jailed in Italy for building an ancient Roman amphitheatre and charging tourists to visit it. So visitors thought they were paying to see ancient Rome. They were actually touring a 20-year-old stage set. An Italian man, Franco Malosso, who is 69, has been sentenced to 2 years and 4 months in prison for forgery, illegal construction, and creating works without authorization. He built a fake Roman amphitheatre and then charged tourists $45 to enter. He claimed that he'd found the Bellico Maritime Amphitheatre, dated to AD 393, after a 2025 landslide unearthed it. And then it had hosted Julius Caesar fresh out of Egypt with Cleopatra and was linked to Juliet Capulet of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. 2016, suspicions about the site began to emerge. Archaeologists called in by the Carabinieri find fiberglass, papier-mâché, and other modern materials. Satellite images showed Molosso had flattened the hill to construct it. When the scam was revealed, the deputy mayor called it one of the most incredible hoaxes since Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. He got the site listed as an EU-funded tourism guide and was therefore, he was also fined $3,400. The local council is seeking $635,000 in damages. Quote, the case continues to provoke astonishment in Italy, where people wonder how such an elaborate fiction could have been erected and maintained over time. This is spectacular. Brian asks, why don't you say it was a recreation? Plenty of people tour recreations. They certainly do. I give you Shakespeare's Globe in London. Possibly one of the best known reconstructed theatre spaces. Doesn't do bad for footfall, considering it's not on the same site as the original Globe, and it's not the original Globe, and yet people are there every day of the year. Why not just do that? Venomous Care Bear, there's a huge tourism fraud problem in Italy. I know someone who was threatened with arrest for being a fake tour guide. He was just walking around pointing things out to his family on vacation. That's wild. Marianne, exactly. We know it's a recreation. And as I say about all of these things where people are like, well, why don't we just put, recreations in museums? People will still go and see them as long as you're honest about what they are. They will. And if this person had been honest about what he built, maybe he started staging plays there. People would still go to have the experience. I mean, if you're going to do it, build it as it would have been and make it an amphitheatre experience. However, you still would need some planning permission. And I will say that if you're building it out of papier-mâché, I do have questions about the health and safety element of being in this structure that's been constructed. How safe would that have been for the people? One wonders. Our last ding dong came with balls. So TSA has found stolen Civil War era cannonballs in a passenger suitcase in Alabama airport. What are we doing, people? So a TSA agent discovered a set of Civil War era cannonballs in the suitcase during a routine screening. This was found at Gulf Shores International Airport on July the 18th. An agent x-rayed a suitcase and found large opaque items inside, opened it up and found 5 small cannonballs wrapped in paper towels, and therefore notified a superior. These cannonballs, the largest is about the size of a grapefruit, weighing about as much as a shot put ball, were inactive, well, thank God for that, and did not contain any explosive material or active components. But did the person check to make sure there was nothing that could have caused him harm or somebody else harm? Nevertheless, cannonballs are artillery munitions and therefore, unsurprisingly, are prohibited when flying. Do you know what? These absolute ding-dongs get on planes with us. This nonsense tries to get in the hold of planes that you're travelling on with your family. What a kipper. These are apparently stolen from Fort Morgan. This is based upon paint marking applied to artifacts by Fort staff and they dated back to the American Civil War. It's believed that a juvenile stole the cannonballs from a storage area in the fort and then placed them in their grandmother's checked bag. The grandmothers told officers not to know they were stolen. Spokespeople at the fort did not respond to an email seeking comment, but the sheriff's office said the institution declined to press charges and the artifacts were returned to the fort. An adolescent, so a child, got 5 cannonballs. What? Okay. This is not only is this a ding-dong, this is a parenting problem, clearly, or a grandparenting problem. Jessie, or maybe Granny is blaming the kid. That's it. She's secretly a gangster granny, and she's doing an illegal trade in black market cannonballs. It was that, or 1 whole kilo of your finest Afghan heroin. It's a massive security problem. Huge security problem. But they did find it at least. What's this? Oh, tofu dregs. No, I haven't. Styrofoam substituted for concrete. Multi-story buildings that pancake in Venezuela or skyscraper in Bangkok. I have never heard of that. That's horrendous. Okay, we're going to hop on to a couple of events and exhibitions that I've got for you. So this one, they're both Egypt related. This one is at the Getty Villa, I believe. Yes, Getty Villa in LA. And it's an exhibition on the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This is going until the 30th of November, 2026. And it is free. And reservations are available 6 weeks in advance. So if I'm able to find the accessibility information for the exhibitions, then I will also include that in the description box. I couldn't find the accessibility information, I don't think, for this one. I'm sure it's there somewhere. I just couldn't seem to find it on the website because I know that I've found the Getty's accessibility link before, but I couldn't find it today. Last but by no means least, the team behind this reached out to tell me about this, and they very kindly asked me if I wanted to come and see this show. Unfortunately, the date it went up, I was still in Dorset, and so I said, I'm very sorry, I can't come. But we're big Horrible Histories fans in this house. It is, of course, the long summer holiday here in the UK. This one's at Battersea. So Horrible Histories is taking over the Ramses exhibition. So this is Horrible Histories live at the museum. And it just looks, meet Ramses, explore the exhibition, join the show. This looks really cool. We're big Horrible Histories fans in this house. The team very kindly here have also said that if I'm available, they may be able to get me some tickets to take me and my eldest son. So I think I'm going to see if I can take them up on that offer and make some vertical videos on our experience. I know that not everybody has got kids or small humans in their life, but I think Horrible Histories is fun for everybody. Of course, it is aimed at kids, and I can scarcely think of a better way to get kids into history. It's an excellent gateway drug into history. My 5-year-old has started learning the monarchs of England songs. So we do have William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Hey, so we've done that. Oh, Steve says accessible information is at the bottom on the bottom. Is at the bottom on the bottom right. Thank you. So that's where you can find it. I have got the access information for this one as well. Wheezy, love Horrible Histories. Yeah, we absolutely love it. Whenever my son sees me editing at my big computer, he comes in and he goes, Mum, play Stupid Deaths. Play Stupid Deaths. So I have to get up the Stupid Deaths on YouTube so that he can watch Stupid Deaths, and he loves the song, and he does sing it. And I'm like, please don't do that in school, for I fear if they don't know that weirdly obscure niche section of it, and also the Whackers Bonkers. He's very keen on, naughty Whackers Bonkers. So yes, he does also threaten to cut people's heads off sometimes when he's been watching too much Horrible Histories. I don't know where he gets it from. Jessie, 5 already. He's going to be 6 next month. 6. And he's getting big. I mean, he's still short. We're a short family. But yeah, he's growing. Nearly 6. Brian, great point. Sometimes I think we focus too much on the rivalry between Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, not enough on the one between Empress Matilda and King Stephen. The anarchy as a tagline. Like, everyone goes on about the Wars of the Roses. I get it. It's great. It's really interesting. English Civil War, super interesting. But there is a battle for the soul of the nation called the anarchy. A time when Christ and his saints slept. What? Steve, school is already having fun. Bless him. We had his parents' evening and he's doing really well. His teacher did say, I have to remind myself that he is 5. And I went, I know what you mean, but carry on. And apparently she says, you give him an instruction and he begins negotiating. I'm like, yep, that's why I call him Catherine QC, because everything's a debate. So he gets a lot of, do you want to chill out, Catherine QC? Because every time you give him an instruction, it's time for the questioning and the possible renegotiation. Also, anywhere you go, everywhere you go, be prepared for the quinquenal. Nobody expects a Spanish Inquisition, but if you're with my eldest son, by Christ, you're going to get one. He wants to know the ins and outs of cat's backside. And also, he enjoys testing me on my times tables. I'm not a mathematician. It makes me anxious, particularly when he's like throwing times tables numbers at me. And then he starts doing other sums and it makes my head spin. So, yeah, she did say that she forgets sometimes that he's 5 and she finds herself giving him an instruction. The debate then begins and she finds herself essentially arguing with a 5-year-old, and she's like, I can't argue with a 5-year-old. I'm like, no, because they don't speak in logic. They speak in lies and haunting sometimes. Things he says, things that all his mates say as well. I'm like, kids are haunted. They say the craziest. It's like the veil between life, the living and the dead. It's wafer thin for them, and it's terrifying. The things that come out of his mouth. Wheezy, I like the songs on Horrible Histories. Listen when you're cooking. Yeah. Jessie, which is why parents have a say because I said so replies. Do you know what I hate? And I hate being that mum. But it gets to a point where you've heard why so many times. You just go, because I'm your mother. That's why. But yeah, so I'm trying to find fun things to do with him over the holidays. And there are a bunch of cool things coming up, which if I get him to them, I'll do some vertical videos that you'll find on here on YouTube in the short shelf. Also, I'll put the same ones up on the other platforms, the clock app and also the camera app, the other ones that you can find my links to everywhere. So, friends, we are going. It's been 4 hours, guys. It's been 4 hours. My eyes are tiny. It's midnight. So I am going to go to bed now because I've got to hang out with my kids tomorrow and deal with them because it's the summer holidays. I hope you are having a wonderful Monday, Tuesday week, wherever you are. If you see news items, email them over to me. We will be back to our regularly programmed services. As in, it will be the last Monday of the month that we will be doing the August history news. So we'll be back on the regularly scheduled programming. Thank you so much once again for spending this time with me, whether you're watching live or on the playback. Thank you for your incredible comments. It's been a great chat. I love these episodes. I have such good fun doing them. And I hope you're going to have a great week wherever you are. Please interact with the video in all of the ways. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, comment, share, hype, maybe. Do all of those things. And also, if you want to make sure that you hear about my information, just in case YouTube doesn't share it, or in fact, they shut down my channel for my copyright thing that I'm fighting, make sure you're over on my email. Go to my website, www.createamarchant.com. Hit the contact page, put your email address in the mailing list so that I can tell you what is going on, if anything does go on. And also, you get links for all of my content. In the meantime, though, do take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you all in my next video, which will be out on Friday, as per usual, in the premiere. Take care of yourselves. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.